Okay, so you probably know by now that Netflix's Wednesday was a spin-off of the Addams Family, and if you didn't, you have been missing out. If you've seen the other movies, you might have thought that Wednesday felt a little weird, like she wasn't quite the way we remembered her. Don't worry, you're not alone, and we're gonna talk about it for a bit. Wednesday released in full on November 23rd, 2022. Season 2 released on August 6, 2025, which was yesterday if you're watching this video when it released. I love you people specifically. With the new release of Season 2, I thought it would be worth going back and taking a look at Season 1 with a bit of a closer eye, because I would have sworn that this show was fantastic, but upon looking at it a little closer, it's not really that great. Little history first. Wednesday is a show based on the life of the oldest child of the Addams family, a macabre family with an eternal love for each other. The show and the character have exactly the same name, because we love when that happens. So make sure you're paying attention if I mean the character or the show. Don't look at me like that, this wasn't my decision. The first on-air appearance of the Addams Family was on September 18th, 1964. Holy shit, that's an oldie. So spoilers ahead for a show from the 60s. However, the Addams Family originated far before that, in a series of single-panel cartoons by Charles Addams for The New Yorker in 1938, though Charles had drawn cartoons of Morticia as early as 1933. After that, they had a second animated show in 1973, immediately after having a Scooby-Doo appearance in 1972. God, I love the Scooby-Doo crossover. Someone remind me to talk about them sometime. 1991 brought my favorite Addams Family rendition with the iconic Raul Julia as Gomez. There was another TV series reboot with a different cast in 1992, as well as a sequel to the Raul Julia Addams Family in 1993. There was an Addams Family reunion in 1998, and the new Addams Family as a live-action show in 1999. And then 2 more animated movies in 2019 and 2021. Altogether, a really long list of Addams Family properties before Wednesday was even a show. So naturally, I wondered what was taken from the past. What quirks of Wednesday, what spirit of the character remained in Jenna Ortega's portrayal of Wednesday? Because let's be clear, Jenna Ortega's portrayal and the Wednesday show in general became an icon. And to be very clear on where I stand, the show itself is fine. I mean, fine in the sense that it's not egregiously bad. But the question I really want to talk about is less about the overall quality. Nah, instead, today we're going to be talking about if Wednesday is a good Addams Family property specifically. The format of this video is going to be pretty simple. We'll review Wednesday's scenes with her family from each episode and talk about what it means, and if it fits the spirit of the Addams Family. Most of the scenes we'll talk about involve her attitude and conversation with her parents and family members, but occasionally we'll dive into the surrounding Wednesday exclusive characters to make a point. Let's talk about that elusive Addams Family spirit. The Addams Family as a property tends to follow the same themes and ideas throughout its stories, whether that be a cartoon or live action. And I won't bury the lead here. The themes are family and acceptance. The entire premise of the Addams Family in general is that even though they're weird and a little twisted, kooky dare I say, they love each other no matter what. And in the face of normal suburbia and more traditional couples, they're actually the most functional and accepting people in the room. Not only of each other, but everyone. So naturally, I wonder how Wednesday is going to take these lessons and ideas of being in the Addams Family to Nevermore. Surely she'll take lessons with her in stride and continue the
I would rather dye my hair pink than ask my mother for advice.
Oh god, we're off to a great start. As I mentioned, I won't be recapping the entire episode, just the relevant bits. And the first relevant bit would be Wednesday's internal dialogue.
I'm not sure whose twisted idea it was, but I admire the sadism.
Internal dialogue was never really a device that the Addams Family deployed, but the show is named after her, so I feel like it's got a good reason. Although, this does actually allow me to introduce you to our folder for this video, the tropes folder. Because damn, the show is picking out tropes like it's an open book test.
I'm not interested in participating in tribal adolescent cliches.
Liar.
So let's add protagonist narration as our first trope and keep an eye on them as we move on. This is my son, Corbin. Moving along, Wednesday's first spoken dialogue is, "I want names," while untethering a tied Pugsley. Protective, check. Caring, check. Not so bad so far. Family togetherness, the us against the world, is pretty thick here. Although, despite Wednesday starting off okay, I'm not thrilled with how Pugsley seems so afraid and helpless here. I expect him to be a giggling mess, ready to plot his revenge. This is a kid who begged his mother to let Wednesday try to electrocute him and waited with a cute smile just to see what would happen. Pugsley is an energetic, rambunctious, willing co-conspirator to Wednesday's plots. He's the cheerful and energetically destructive yang to Wednesday's stoic and macabre yin.
That's not true. It is so. Everyone knows it.
She's the intellectual and he's the playful one. He doesn't cry when Wednesday torments him. He giggles and asks for more.
How do you plead? Guilty.
All this background to say that the characterization in the show just doesn't feel so right for him. After her first line, she tells Pugsley that
Emotion equals weakness.
and to pull himself together. This is an oversimplification of her personality quirk where she's generally stoic and non-expressive. But nobody in her family has ever said such things to her or anybody else in the family. In fact, their family is full of passionate and emotional people. Everyone but her is extremely emotional, and even she in other media shows a level of obsession and fixation for certain subjects. Maybe not emotional, but passionate at least. Telling a young man not to be emotional when something awful happens is number 1, really shitty, number 2, not supportive, and number 3, a gross misunderstanding of her character. And this is the first interaction with their family, so let's hope this doesn't create a pattern. While we're at it, let's talk about Pugsley a little bit more.
Which part?
Okay, bully's gonna bully, right? Maybe they got the drop on him. But he's acting so damn meek about it. When did the Addamses ever meet a rope or kidnapping they didn't like? He even goes as far as to claim that he doesn't know who threw him in the locker, which we know is a flat out lie because when Wednesday touches his arm, she can see him facing them. I mean, orientation wise, like he was facing the door of the locker, how could he have not seen them? I'm not aware of any time when Pugsley lied to Wednesday, especially out of fear or retribution for someone else. It's so counter to his character because Pugsley delights in retribution. This goes back to my comment earlier that he would have been delighted by this game that he's playing with the jocks, and he would have been putting piranhas in the swimming pool with her. This changes his character from a devilish co-conspirator into somebody who needs protecting and is afraid of what? Rope? Lockers? Jocks? These people sleep in coffins and try to electrocute each other for funsies. Even in this version, Gomez mentions later that Fester has a rack built for two, suggesting that the torture is part of their fun and games. Rope and an apple should not make a fearful Pugsley Addams. How are we not immediately talking about how we're gonna get them back? Tell me it doesn't sound like an incredibly Addams Family thing to act like this is a fun game between Pugsley and the stereotypical jocks, and now it's his turn to prank them back. Pugsley's character has officially been transformed into a sniveling child that needs to be protected. Alright, now let's talk about the newest addition to the Addams Family lore. Wednesday has powers. Like, legitimate powers. We ain't talking about premonitions or potions, we're talking about straight up Force echoes. They turned her into Phoebe from Charmed. It allows her the ability to see what happened to Pugsley and know who she needs to go after, which is necessary because, and I only kind of touched on it, why the hell is he lying to Wednesday? Like, what? This feels less like a thoughtful narrative device and more like a writer's safety net. A convenient deus ex machina whenever the plot needs a little nudge and the writers don't have an organic way to get there. I'm really not a huge fan of the story going, well, how did they do it? And the answer being, visions, I guess? And it's even easier for lazy writers when it doesn't have any internal consistency. Arbitrary rules like, oh, we don't even know what triggers it, which Wednesday even makes a point of showcasing later on in the show. No consistency means that it doesn't come with any hard rules that can corner a writing team who write themselves into a corner. You can't break the rules if you don't have any. They can utilize the power whenever they need it, and it's usually just to drop a forced twist, deliver exposition, or generate tension without setting any of it up. It's a power with no cost. There's no trade-off, no thematic weight, and without that, it's just a cheat code. Great powers should come with stakes, not serve as shortcuts. With great power comes great responsibility, or something or other, right? Now having the information that the jocks tortured her brother, Wednesday goes to remedy the issue by dropping piranhas into the polo team's swim practice. This gets her expelled, giving us the inciting incident of sending her to Nevermore. The next scene is her in the car with her whole family en route to Nevermore, where we get our first look at the new Gomez and Morticia Addams, and Lurch too. The whole family is here, so let's see how they stack up. And before we go on, guys, that's Gotcha from Narcos. Gomez serenades Morticia in the backseat while Wednesday watches. Pugsley rolls his eyes in the front seat as his mother sings along. It's already feeling a little weird. I don't remember the kids eye-rolling over their parents before. Obviously the parents weren't banging in front of their kids, but their open affection for each other was never looked at so unfavorably in other renditions. The lack of acceptance from the rest of the family is strange. And not strange in a good way, like how the Addams Family past kept heads in jars or ate moving food. Is this supposed to be more teen angst inserted to show growth? I feel like on one hand, it would make sense that as Wednesday got older, she would be less tolerant of her parents. Actually, that sounds kind of dope. Skip the teenage shit. Show me Pugsley getting into a union. That's actually an extremely meta joke since one of the older Pugsley actors quit acting to become a teamster. The more you know. I guess I should mention that there is actually an adult Wednesday Addams show that existed on YouTube for a while, almost a decade ago. It was entirely fan-made, but it got so popular that it actually got a cease and desist letter. So if you are like me and do want to see more of adult Wednesday Addams, it's out there somewhere. Where was I? Oh, right. On one hand, maybe this was to be expected and kind of inevitable as far as Wednesday growing up. But on the other hand, the lack of judgment from her and the rest of the family was what made the Addams Family so cohesive. So jury's out on this one. Feels unlike what we've seen before, but that doesn't make it bad out of the gate. Back to the car, Wednesday's first conversation with her parents is to openly tell them that she's rejecting who they are and she has no intention of following in their footsteps. This is a pretty egregious example of telling and not showing, attempting to be passed off as more teen angst. Other than Wednesday's rejection though, her parents seem on brand. They're trying to make the best out of a bad situation. She was expelled. I mean, what else are they gonna do but try to offer her a familiar space with people they think are more their speed? Although I feel like they would have been more proud of her for being expelled, which is an odd absence, but when would you find the time in between all of this aggression from Wednesday? Oh wait, spoke too soon. Later in the conversation, one of the parents straight up says,
Well, we aren't the ones who got you expelled.
which is the exact opposite reaction I would expect from them.
Our Amanda's already skipped 2 grades. How about your boy?
Probation.
The next beat is that Morticia says that one of the boys' mothers was going to press attempted murder charges.
How would that have looked on your record?
Terrible. Everyone would know I failed to get the job done.
See, this is the interaction I've been missing. The witty, break from tradition kind of talk between a mother and a daughter about murder. The kind of stuff the Addams Family was known for. This moment would be fantastic if only Morticia gave some kind of approval. You'd expect her to say, yes, exactly, but instead we get a kind of like, oh, okay. Moving right along, we get to Larissa Weems' office. It's a pretty good scene overall, except Wednesday is openly rude in a way that we haven't really seen much of before. Okay, yeah, for sure, she's edgier in Addams Family values.
I'll be the victim.
All your life.
but I don't remember her being so cutting towards her own family members. I don't know if this is supposed to be another attempt to play off the all teens hate their parents cliche, but it feels exceptionally heavy-handed. On the other side of this off-brand interaction, we get plenty of cutaway reaction shots of Morticia pearl clutching over the rude things that Wednesday says about her, which is just frosting on the cake of what the hell is happening. Wednesday saying things to constantly cut her mother down is one thing, but then to have our cool, calm, and collected queen of poise and mysterious allure crumble over every cutting word from a teenager seems really off. Morticia is a character that exudes power and romantic mystique, not because she is powerful or has magic, but because she's completely secure and clothes herself in effortless confidence. She is unbothered, unwavering, unflappable, the kind of woman who steps out of the shadows into the perfect eyelight wherever she goes. Despite appearances, she's not cold and detached, au contraire.
That's French.
She's observant, watchful, and loving. When there's a disturbance in the home or the family, she is the first one to step forward and take charge of it, even if it doesn't turn out well. She's a woman of precision, control, grace, and calculated ambiguity. This Morticia is a sheep in witch's clothing, and it makes me crazy that they're presenting her this way. This, oh my gosh, Wednesday, you're embarrassing me kind of energy. I won't add all teens hate their parents to our tropes folder because I feel like you either get a coin flip on whether or not your teens love or hate you.
Yeah, he knows it.
But I will add the transfer to a new school as our second trope, because yeah, I feel like there's 1.5 million stories that start that way. Yeah, you heard me, 1.5 million. What, you think I'm gonna count them for you?
What do I look like, a guy who's not lazy?
In the next scene, upon seeing a picture of Morticia on the fencing team, Wednesday states that their plan is to turn her into a version of themselves. Which, if you haven't caught on enough yet, Mark isn't his father. Fuck, how does this theme keep getting in these videos? I mean, Wednesday isn't her mother, and she'll just keep saying it every time until we understand it. Not even limited to this episode either. After this, we finally get some humor in our show about freaks learning to love when Enid tells Wednesday to
Fuel your obviously bottomless pit of disdain.
with the info she drops. I fucking love it. I guess there is some actual analysis to be had here though. The Addams Family was a comedy.
Really?
I mean, sure, it had sweet moments, but it was made to be funny and laughed at. Netflix's Wednesday is obviously trying to change that formula a bit, but I guess I felt like I needed to mention that this part is actually rather funny, and we haven't really had a good joke since we started this journey. We move on to the family saying their goodbyes at the car.
Gomez is over the moon seeing her in her uniform. Pugsley gives her a hug and Wednesday says that he won't last without her.
He reads between the lines and says that he'll miss her too. So far, this is actually the closest thing we've gotten to how the Addams family should probably feel. To me, at least. Right up until Morticia vaguely threatens Wednesday. She tells her she can't run away and she's warned all the family members. Wednesday tells her to suck it and then she's going to run away and never see them again. Which, like, damn, okay, maybe escalation of threats is kind of classic Addams Family, but running away feels out of place for her. And yes, I hear you now. But Lance, Wednesday, Pugsley, and Joel made their valiant efforts to flee the camp in Addams Family values. I mean, that's definitely exactly what you're all saying right now. But the reason they were sent there from the beginning was because it was a normal, terrible summer camp that Debbie knew that they would hate, and sent them there so that they would be out of her way. Wednesday was fleeing the camp to get home because she knew that her family was in danger. Here, she's trying to run away from just the school, which is full of people just like her, where her weirdness is celebrated. Not a summer camp ruled by counselors and the suburban mean girls from hell. What I'm trying to say here is that in the past, she's run away for her family, but in Netflix's hit show Wednesday, she runs away from her family. This resentment and tension between them is a really strange fit. Morticia then tries to give a gift, which has a spiritual connection, which is a nice nod to their Latino heritage, and quite possibly a reference to the animated 2021 movie where basically the same thing happens. The moment is kind of squashed when Wednesday flat out tells Morticia that she's not her. She says she'll never have a family, fall in love, or be a housewife, insulting the gift and Morticia's way of life.
I shouldn't take it to heart.
Fortunately, you don't have one.
Finally, a kind word for your mother.
Alright, I mean, nice ending, I guess, but one solid line of dialogue doesn't make up for what the scene does on a broader scale. The whole interaction confuses the Addams Family brand of macabre, joyful misery for something more edgy. One moment, Morticia is genuinely hurt by Wednesday's insults, and then in the next she's honored by it. It leaves the sense of understanding muddied and confused. In the other franchise properties, we were given consistency on what the Addams Family found acceptable because they didn't cut each other down. They were united even when Wednesday tried to kill Pugsley that one time, or that other time, or that other time. Yeah, it happened a lot. There were examples of the family being concerned, but generally speaking, they were trained to understand that death, darkness, and despair were all things to delight in. But intermingling rejection and dark comments that seem to hurt her family with dark comments that seem to delight them causes some dissonance.
It makes it hard to understand the new rules and codex for the family. It just feels inconsistent. That's what he has to say about it.
The next scene that deals with her family is when she finds Thing in her room and she calls her parents evil puppeteers that want to control everything from afar. Which does feel very edgelord teenager, but still doesn't feel like Wednesday. Just post that shit to I'm 14 and this is deep and move on with your life already. Even when they were sent off to Camp Chippewa,
It means orphan.
by the way, it doesn't, but it's just too damn funny. Where was I? The kids don't seem to be angry with their parents as much as she is right now. And then her family leaves. The next reference to them is when the sheriff mentions that Gomez deserves to be behind bars for murder. This flows into the next scene where Wednesday asks the principal what they meant by that, and the principal tells her to stop making enemies and basically brushes it off.
Scary.
I mean, kind of. If Gomez had killed somebody, nobody would be surprised. I'm reminded of the line,
Remember Camp Custer for preteen offenders.
which Fester and Gomez both attended in Addams Family Values. So it's almost like not surprising. I think we've forgotten for a second which family we're talking about here. The next scene involving her family is about generic love interest number 1, the Normie. Normie gives Wednesday his dad's police file, and then she stares at him like he's a crazy person, which doesn't give her Wednesday vibes as much as it gives her like deeply autistic vibes. Anyway, she says,
I'm not used to people engaging with me.
to which love interest 1 says,
You're not scary, you're just kinda kooky.
Ooh, give the boy a prize.
alright, there's a bit of layers in this. Firstly, Kooky is a reference to the original Addams Family theme song, so I guess it's cool that it's here, but I do have a problem with it. Maybe it's a little pedantic and personal opinion-y, but it feels kind of forced. It doesn't sound very organic. Like, tell me quirky doesn't roll off the tongue a little bit easier. Kooky fell out of fashion in everyday dialogue, and so like, they're using it specifically because it's a reference. Also, what does she mean she's not used to people engaging with her? But yes, she is. Wednesday being incredibly comfortable and socially aware is part of her core being, like, to a fault sometimes. She isn't awkward around normal people, she's just different. Maybe they're trying to play up the whole but we've never seen a socially awkward Wednesday Addams before. She is confident and self-assured. The most awkward we ever saw her was while she was getting close to Joel in Addams Family Values. Which brings us to the end of Wednesday's first week. Her parents call her up on a crystal ball. You know, I tried to tell them that all iPhones have FaceTime now and they wouldn't have expensive roaming sorcery charges, but no, they had to be bougie. Gomez asks how her first week was, and she internally runs through all the insanity that happened, telling Morticia that as much as she hates to admit it, she's going to love it here. Cute end to the episode. Yay, cool. Oh, we gotta talk about these nicknames that Gomez gives her, though. It may be put on a little thick, but it feels definitely like something he would do.
Hello, my little black cloud. My little scorpion won't be alone. My little death trap.
More!
Come up with some other ones in the comments. I love these endearing dangers. But that's the end of the first episode as far as Wednesday's interaction with her family, and I think we can already start to feel that we're building a good case that Wednesday feels very different than the one we're accustomed to knowing. To further illustrate this point, I quickly want to run down how Wednesday interacts with other new characters in Nevermore. In the past, Wednesday has different interactions with different kinds of people, obviously. She interacts with Fester very skeptically as she views him as a new person, and she obviously has a disdain for the vapid girls at camp, and even a small romantic bone for Joel as well. Nuanced reactions for each of these very different characters, which is why it surprised me when Wednesday is straight up a dick to everyone at Nevermore. Let's review. First, she meets Enid, and is kind enough upon their first meeting, but once she begins to settle into her room, she basically becomes unbearable to live with, forcing down Enid's colors, demanding that she stop dancing, and threatening to smother her in her sleep. And Enid is a freak. Firstly, she's a literal freak in being a werewolf, to which Wednesday asks no questions whatsoever. You'd think she'd be asking her things up and down about having claws under her nails. Being inquisitive is one of her main traits in iterations past. But secondly, she's her roommate, whether she likes it or not. Someone she's going to have to live with, and aside from being inquisitive, Wednesday was most definitely an adaptable person, even to uncomfortable situations, like at camp in Addams Family Values. There's actually a moment from Parks and Recreation of all places that kind of illustrates what I think would be a more apt representation of how Wednesday might handle a situation like this. For anyone who hasn't seen it, April Ludgate is our resident goth girl, super weird, super strange, but when she gets matched up with an insanely vapid, awful person from the town over,
Tinifer, with 2 Ys.
she adapts herself just for the lulz and to mock her in a way that she wouldn't even understand, eventually getting her to quit. It's intelligent for her. That is kind of how I would imagine Wednesday would work with Enid as a mainstay in her Nevermore journey.
She's the worst person I've ever met. I want to travel the world with her.
Let's move along now. Next scene, she meets Bianca, our resident queen bee as she puts it. Her first interaction with her is fencing her after she knocks down Rowan and brags about it. Bianca insults her and Wednesday insults her back. Then they fight.
A lot of they fight.
I think there's something to be said about the scene feeling really predictable. Like in any other show, yeah, this is exactly how I would expect it to go down. The girls get catty with each other, they're both holding swords, one thing leads to another. But for Wednesday Addams to stoop to the same level as someone like Bianca feels super out of character. She's supposed to be composed, mature, strong in her stoicism. Instead, she literally is no better than Bianca in this scene. And the show is setting up Bianca to be a dick. So the associative property of math tells me that Wednesday is also a dick, which was never like her. Witty and a tad rude, absolutely. But a dick to someone who she didn't even know? Absolutely not. And what was with her trying to come in and dethrone Bianca anyway? She obviously only fought her because she was trying to knock her down a peg, but then what? What's your follow-up plan, Wednesday?
And then what? You never think these things through.
You become the queen bee? Because I'm sure you would love that. Suddenly everyone admires you for taking down Bianca? Also seems like you'd really love that situation. Wednesday, aside from being stoic and calculated, was strategic. She wouldn't have done this without a plan. And yeah, maybe she did have one, but like, I'm struggling to see what it would be. Okay, let me put it like this. You tell me if this sounds like it's in character. Wednesday Addams arrives at a new school, and upon hearing the rundown of the social groups, decides to run up to the queen bee and dethrone her. I understand if you think that sounds like something she would do, but that's because you're specifically confusing Wednesday Addams for any other generic, unexpected alt badass in media. Mia. And there's a lot of them. Black Widow and Gamora come to mind, Ramona Flowers, Effie Stoneham from the show Skins. But Wednesday is way too calculated to just walk up into a new joint and punch a bitch. After Bianca, she interacts with Rowan. In the scene with Bianca, she was pseudo-defending him, so he tries to thank her. The entire conversation was her saying 2 lines to him. One where she shuts him down from empathizing with her, and one where she kind of acknowledges that she was defending him. To understand why this feels weird, we need to break down who Rowan is, at least at this point. He's a nerdy-looking kid who faced an injustice. Bianca tripped him and the teacher did nothing. As he puts it, an outcast in a school of outcasts. On paper, with how we understand Wednesday, she should be drawn to this kid. She should be attempting to defend him, if not overly nurturing him, having some undertones that they're in this together. Instead, she's cold and quick, which are normally qualities of Wednesday, but not for this person. For this type of person, she shouldn't be acting this way. Similar to how we noted that she shouldn't have been so emotionally repressive to Pugsley in the first few minutes of the episode. I mean, hell, even in this very episode, she attempts to talk to Rowan and tell him he's in danger later. I guess she'll care about him when his life is in danger, but not his mental health? It feels like a strange blind spot for her. There are tons of other characters and kids that Wednesday interacts with in this episode, but these 3 make the point perfectly fine. The way she interacts with the people should feel different, but it's not. She's just kind of one note for the entire episode. Even though all of the Addamses have really well-defined personalities and quirks, the only one she's able to conjure is stoic and emo. The one bit of grace or leeway I can give her is that she's mad at her parents, and mad at the school to begin with, so maybe she's just having a moody day. Sure. I just don't think it's very like Wednesday Addams to interact with everyone in the same way. We're building a case that this Wednesday is kind of a shadow of her former iterations. The Addams Family spirit has been removed so far, with Wednesday being less expressive than her previous iterations. And that's saying something. But, you know, let's see if it improves as we continue.
This episode starts with Wednesday and the sheriff talking in William's office about the murder that she witnessed.
The murder scene has suspiciously been scrubbed clean, and Wednesday asks the sheriff to talk alone, and the sheriff calls her the daughter of a murderer, referring to Gomez. So the first words mentioning her family in this episode is Wednesday actually defending her father.
My father is twice the man you are, and the only thing he murders is the occasional opera in the shower.
Alrighty now, this feels way more in line with what we know about the family. Defending her father from the outside that doesn't understand feels very familial. Although I'm still not sold on this idea that the Addamses don't have a few murders under their belt. Later in the episode, Weems accuses Wednesday of having visions, and proves that she's the most observant fucking character. It's interesting that she ended up being the person who actually gives a damn about people and pays attention to them. She's a good principal, even if she's shady and career-driven. Weems then talks to Wednesday about Morticia's visions and how she started having them around Wednesday's age, and how she thought she was losing her mind at first. Basically, she's insinuating that Wednesday is going nuts and imagining the murder. Wouldn't be a story about women without somebody telling her it's all in your head. So naturally, this feels unusual since Morticia and Wednesday didn't have powers in any other Addams Family property. Her vibe may be mysterious, mythical, and witchy, but she isn't magical. She reads tarot, she has a cauldron, she makes mention of wanting to contact dark spirits, but it's not so much magic in the magical beast sort of way. In some of the cartoons, she did have potions or little gags, and they didn't make Morticia a magical being. My assessment is that this element specifically is what makes the show feel like Harry Potter and the Gothic Princess. Stuff like the crystal ball makes it feel a little too kitschy and serious. What was I saying? Oh right, the point of the scene is to make Wednesday think that she's going insane, which absolutely never happened previously. Morticia treats her children as small adults with their own thoughts, experiments, and morbid interests. Hell, she even supported Puber when he started going blonde and wanted to read Cat in the Hat. She was dismayed.
Oh no, he lives.
But she did it. She's also very emotionally honest as a character. She's mysterious and holds a gothic mystique, but she never lies to manipulate her children. If Wednesday was struggling with something real, Morticia would address it head on, and not brush it off and make her doubt herself. This is the woman who decided that she was going to walk up to the Addams Family home and talk Fester into talking to Gomez again. She doesn't approach real problems any other way but head on. That's part of her appeal and power as a woman. She's not emotionally evasive. She communicates through intense eye contact, poetic speeches, and honesty cloaked in her own personality. Also, gaslighting implies shame, which, as we've discussed, really doesn't belong in the Addams Family. Gaslighting happens as manipulation because of fear of what people will think. Morticia would never try to suppress or deny Wednesday's emotions or instincts. She'd be more likely to nurture them, even if they were uncomfortable for her. Hard to imagine what would be uncomfortable for an Addams. Next up is the scene where Wednesday is informed that Thing is mad at her. She basically says that he's just a hand, and Enid explains that they're family and he'd do anything for her, and doesn't feel like she respects him as a person. She then tries to give a shitty apology, then bribe him, then insult him.
He finally gets her to open up about what she's really been obsessing over and whatnot. It's funny to me that the family member who has the least ability to verbalize is the one that she ends up talking to the most, even if she seems to devalue him in one breath and use him in every instance in the next.
But wait a second, why is Enid the one pointing out to Wednesday that Thing is family and she needs to act right? This is madness. Someone she's known for a week should not be pointing out to Wednesday that Thing is family and deserves respect. The intention from the writers is to help show growth for Wednesday, but at this point it feels so contrived and forced to have her abusing the only family member who is actually here and consistently has her back. When I put it that way, the movement doesn't feel like growth. It feels like correcting something that was inherently wrong to begin with. I go into this more in episode 4 though. What, you thought this would be be the only instance of this happening? Yeah, I wish. There's also a trend I've been noticing lately. Having protagonists confide in characters or entities that don't actually have a way to communicate back, or communicate in a way that the audience can actually understand. I mean, technically that shit went back to R2-D2 and even before, but it feels very expository. Like, oh, we want to have the protagonist spell out their feelings. What's the best way to do that? I know, let's have them just say it aloud to a rock. Wait, a rock is dumb. But what if a cat? And for the record, the best way to exposit to an audience is to make it a conversation between two people, in case anyone was unclear. Moving on now, it's amusing to me that the entire show really centers around Wednesday attempting to reject her family. This puts Goody Addams in an interesting place because she's played by Jenna Ortega herself. So Wednesday, attempting to spend the entire show running away from her family, needs to get drawn back into them because of this character, who also happens to be the same actress. So despite running away from her family at every turn, she literally can't get away from them because of this new element of the story. I can't quite tell if this is actually good writing or just a fun thematic accident that the writers kind of stumbled into. Let me think about this for a second. I think it's good writing. I mean, I think it's good enough as in it's clever enough to be in the show. I think if they really wanted to make Wednesday nothing like her family, they could have taken a real Pubert is blonde approach to her, but they didn't. Let's talk about Pubert quick. Pubert is the third Addams Family child, debuting in Addams Family Values. When Fester gets lured away and the family gets fractured, Pubert's hair turns blonde and he gets a personality of a bubbly baby. A fate absolutely worse than death. Oh, but not for you, my blind little Corbin. They work hard to get the family back together so that he can return to being himself. So that might sound like a crazy suggestion, but make Wednesday blonde. If they really wanted to do the whole she's stepping out and being angsty thing, cutting her family out of her life, make her get a cute tattoo. Have her put a light blue streak in her hair. Let her do something bubbly and cute that would annoy her family and make them think something's wrong. As you may have been able to tell from the visuals, this is kind of what they did with the animated Addams Family in 2019, and it worked much better there. Instead, they did make her blonde, but they made her blonde as a different character. You can't do 1 foot in, 1 foot out. I mean, come on. So maybe it doesn't feel like good writing? I have to think about this further. Okay, no, I'm just kidding. I think it was good writing within the frame of what it's doing, but I think there were better ways to go about it. One thing's for sure, if they did give her a light blue streak in her hair, it would make her nothing like her family. It would really exemplify that she's trying to be her own person, and maybe her family isn't accepting that, or doesn't want it to be that way. Instead, Wednesday is just herself, and her family is still at odds. There's not really a reason for this tension, and it makes the theme of familial rejection feel kind of limp. Like, what did they do to deserve it? Why are they at odds in the first place? The only thing I could really objectively point to is Morticia and Gomez lying about the murder of what's-his-fuck, but don't worry, we'll talk about that soon. The last mention of her family in this episode is a random family portrait found in the hidden nightshade lair. Wednesday says,
My mother's staring at me in a judgmental way.
Objection!
Your Honor, please give me one prior example in the Addamsverse of Morticia being judgmental to Wednesday.
As a matter of fact, the defense would like to argue the opposite. When she attempts to murder her brother, her mother gives her a better knife to use. Does that taste good?
Judgment was never a part of the Addams Family mythos. In fact, it was straight up the opposite, with the family being the most accepting people at any given time, and the normal people surrounding them actually being the judgmental ones. So episode 2 down, let's recap. We had Wednesday yelling at the only family member planning on being consistently around, and expecting judgment from her mother. Only episode 2 so far, and I can confidently say that this is not the Wednesday Addams I was expecting. Now, admittedly, this episode is kind of hurting for scenes of Wednesday talking to or about her family, which I think means something in and of itself considering Wednesday is a part of the Addams Family. Anyone remember Planet Sheen and how it was really awful and it was a weird idea to take what was only a supplementary part of a whole team and give him his own show? And how shows have been doing that for years and it like never works out great because as it turns out, having people be a part of a bigger whole isn't actually a bad thing and actually adds to their strengths. No? No one? Yeah, me neither. So firstly, there's a brief mention where things suggest that Wednesday asked her mother for advice on how to trigger a vision, and Wednesday says,
I would rather dye my hair pink than ask my mother for advice.
We get it, man. You're fucking edgy and cool. Yeah, you're the coolest fucking guy at Shenanigans. Woo!
It's yet another example of Wednesday's strange tension with her mother. Snapping over Morticia in a generic teen angsty tone makes Wednesday sound like she's in the Gilmore Girls, not a gothic satire. Needless to say that Wednesday's relationship with her mother was never like this. There was maybe a little bit of adults are stupid energy from her, especially when they were being stupid, but the idea that Wednesday would forego assistance from her family because she's, what, angsty? It just feels very... Okay, you know what it feels like? It feels very non-familial. It feels like there's no family element to this show, or this family, and, you know, far be it from me to say that the show should do something, but fucking sue me for thinking that the Addams Family property should have a bit more of the family element. Now, we've actually said all we needed to say about Wednesday specifically, so let's talk a bit more broadly about the Addams Family in regards to Jericho.
There's a place where we can be free. Find Jericho!
I've said before that the whole point of the Addams Family franchise is that it's a satire. It holds a mirror up to the ridiculous demands of normalcy in the world, and celebrates how a bunch of eccentric weirdos get to be the most well-balanced people in the room.
I've also mentioned how because there's none of that contrast in this world now because it's made up of weirdos, even more weird than Wednesday, arguably it makes her the normal one. It destroys the base concept that the Addams family is built off of. It's unfair of me to claim that and not talk about the nearby normie town of Jericho that's supposed to be the slice of normalcy to contrast Wednesday and Nevermore against. First of all, they gave being normal a cutesy name, and I am not a fan. It feels like Harry Potter calling everyone muggles, except worse somehow. No other Addams Family franchise needed to call out the difference because it was really apparent. It was the whole joke. But okay, fine, keep your ooh-woo bullshit and be cute about it with your normies and outcasts, whatever. Jericho is supposed to be the normal world that helps us contrast and give laughs. That's the satire part. But instead of it feeling exaggerated or parody, the way it's written makes the town feel sad and uncomfortable, rather than satirical and humorous. It just feels, well, racist and bigoted. It's not even clever or cartoonish, it's uncomfortable. It's not even that normal, because it's crawling with its own monsters, secrets, and psychos that are built into the story, and need to be discovered as we continued. Come to think of it, that may be the most redeeming element of this town, since hypocrisy is kind of a mainstay of being normal, but some of the weirdness doesn't even have to be uncovered, because it's right there in the open. Enter Pilgrim World. What the hell is this buckled shoe colonial cringe fest? It's a fever dream built by men who consider butter churning a gender role. This thing isn't satire, it's unironic Americana cosplay.
I can't believe I just said those words.
And the show expects us to take it seriously. This isn't even the first time that Wednesday has had beef with Pilgrim specifically. Wednesday took a stand against Gary and Becky Granger in the play for the first Thanksgiving in the Addams Family Values.
If I had a nickel for every time
Wednesday fought Pilgrims,
I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice, right?
It played much better because it followed the golden Addams Family rule, satire.
I am a turkey. Kill me.
Now, we've talked a lot about the term satire, but let's get specific about what it means and why it's a mainstay of the Addams Family properties. Satire is a genre that uses humor to expose and criticize the flaws and absurdities of society, individuals, or institutions. God, I'm an encyclopedia. It's supposed to be thought-provoking through humor, and the way they do that is by using irony, exaggeration, parody, or incongruity. Exaggeration and parody are the main tools of the Addams Family franchise that they use to create their satire. So when the show approaches something with sincerity, earnestness, or literalness, it destroys the opportunity. Pilgrim World isn't satire because even though on paper it sounds ridiculous, the show treats it with seriousness. The other characters don't ridicule it, and there's no escalation. Satire looks to heighten the absurdity and expose its flaws, like the Harmony Hut in Addams Family Values. It was a torture chamber designed to break children's spirits to their cheerful way of normalcy and group thought, and everyone treats it that way. That is satire. Satire is not people in period clothing speaking in a bad dialect teaching kids the free trial version of history and selling fudge. That's historical LARP for the sake of capitalism. It's humorous and cringy, but not satire because there's no escalation, no exaggeration, and no self-awareness into this world. The stage was set for some biting satire, but it just never came. Okay, I can't say that nobody bats an eye because we do get Wednesday giving a minor eye roll to the place at one point. While selling fudge, she explains to some German tourists exactly what's wrong with Pilgrim World, and she even does it in their own language. It's pretty scathing, honestly, and it's the best part of the episode. That moment of awareness and poking fun at Pilgrim World is great, but the reason it doesn't quite hit as hard as Addams Family Values is because it's kind of against type for the Addams. It's too earnest in its cultural critique and social justice. And again, they have no shame, so choosing to simply say this in German to tourists may have the intent of coming off as subtle sabotage, but it's too subtle. Addams and subtle don't really mesh together. The way this plays out is that Wednesday explains her critiques in German to extras that we never see again, then plays cello in the background while someone else does her sabotage, and then discusses the issue behind closed doors. Rather than theatrically dismantling it in front of everybody on a grand stage, exposing it to the world with flamethrowers and guillotines, she suddenly becomes a girl too subdued to make a statement. The girl who stood outside the pool, called her threat, and threw piranhas in it suddenly is subdued. Without spectacle, irony, or purpose, it's just social commentary, not satire. I mentioned classic Wednesday's clash with Pilgrims in the past and how they managed to pull it off better, so let's talk about it. In the Addams Family Values Thanksgiving play, we put Wednesday in the center of a boring, whitewashed play about the first Thanksgiving that we've seen 100 times over, usually done by third graders. It feels normal because we have seen it before, even if the bright faces putting it on are a caricature of suburban spoiled brats and the counselors are cheerful Muppets. Mind you, this is after Wednesday, Joel, and Pugsley are sent to the Harmony Hut, and Wednesday pretends to be broken to their way of thought in order to infiltrate the play. She goes along with the ruse, but then disrupts the play by holding up a mirror to the crowd. This is the social commentary part. Then theatrically destroys the camp with her band of outcasts, completely in character rather than an insulting version of the character she's playing. Then she celebrates by taking a canoe ride with the boy worshipping the dark goddess of intellectualism. She doesn't just destroy something false, she replaces it with a macabre truth and does the whole thing center stage in front of everyone. Wednesday uses subterfuge to get inside, and then chooses the most impactful moment to tell everyone why this is messed up, with theatrical relish, and then executes a public protest of the wanton and satirized destruction. I mean, we have kids in neck braces shooting flaming arrows, chasing down normie pilgrims on zip lines, and burning huts, and by the end of it, the counselors are being roasted over a spit, and all the outcasts are sitting at the table with the flames dancing around them. Wednesday is a general, commanding the respect of the rejects and giving their frustration a voice and purpose. That is the girl that this show needed. In the hit Netflix show Wednesday, she goes along with the role she's given, lectures a select group of never-seen-again German tourists, and then fucks off to get the information she needs. Then later, she cooperatively plays her cello while Thing sabotages a statue in front of everyone, without explanation. The lack of explanation and context loses the impact and turns what could have been a moment to stand up for the outcasts and reject Crackstone's legacy into something kind of just hollow. Think about it from the audience member's point of view. You have no idea what's going on, just that their city is being attacked. There was no question for the audiences at Camp Chippewa because Wednesday explained it. But instead, Wednesday sits back and smirks about the explosion, then denies it when she's dragged into Weem's office. She's moralizing and arguing social politics with a politician, saving the message for behind closed doors. It misses the Addams Family core tactic, performative protest. Wednesday shouldn't just correct the narrative. She needs to rewrite it, perform it, and make damn sure everyone is watching. The cello scene was theatrical, sure, but without the declaration, without the spectacle of intent, it's just vandalism with a soundtrack. Wednesday is kinda talking about the same things, but in Addams Family values, she makes her intentions clear. In the show, you could write off what she's spouting to the German tourists as her just attempting to make them uncomfortable, not necessarily sending a message. Commenting on bigotry and racism in media is well and fine. I encourage it, actually. We use it plenty in all kinds of other stories. X-Men did it better, but whatever. But the Addams Family has never been about direct moralizing.
It's about mocking the system and solemnly critiquing it.
It's about Morticia walking down the halls with Wednesday's teacher, praising Wednesday for choosing her minister-enslaving, nude-dancing witch great-aunt, then reassuring the teacher that they've told Wednesday,
college first.
Not Morticia chastising the mayor because he doesn't know what it's like to have never been believed, or the social and legal complexity that comes with that. There's also a level of shock value that the normal world always provided for the Addams Family. Lopping off limbs and spraying the audience with blood while their family cheers and everyone else is stunned. There's no pearl clutching over the werewolf with her pastel nails. There's no fish out of water moments to provide relief. No culture clash, no nothing. It's just a sad, dying town full of scandals, weirdos, and psychopaths that are all weirdly bigoted towards a bunch of people born differently. It's uncomfortable. All to do what exactly? Having other normal families involved in the Addams Family stories acted as a fun contrast, but there's nothing really to contrast here. Weird kids doing normal things and being treated weird for it. Like, okay, someone tell me what the point is. So even though this episode doesn't give us much for Wednesday's dissonance with her family specifically, I feel like it says a lot about the world of the Addams Family, which is unironically funny to me since the episode didn't have them in it at all. Episode 4 has our first mention of the family when Wednesday has a throwaway line about Fester giving her a cadaver for her 13th birthday, and that Thing's scalpel skills are questionable. Alright, now we're back on track. This is a cute and believable line for the family, even if Wednesday is being a little too cutting for Thing. But, at this point, it feels a little late. These slivers of what a classic Wednesday Addams might say are slipped into the show at erratic points, and they may be on brand for what we'd expect for the character, but because the tone of the show is so shifted, they feel completely out of the blue and awkward. It's almost as if a writer went, we should make Wednesday say or do something creepy, because we haven't done that in the episode yet. In the popular icon show Wednesday, the overall tone is serious, brooding, and emotional.
I don't believe in comedy! Just kidding!
It's turned a fun property into a drama with high-stakes plotting, trauma, and half-baked character arcs about trust and vulnerability. So when a darkly funny deadpan one-liner drops in, it feels more like a quirky insert than a natural part of the world. The show is so damn serious, it seems to occasionally remember that it's supposed to be spooky. It's like the show put on an Addams Family graphic t-shirt, but by this time tomorrow, it'll have changed. Wow, that line went kind of harder than I meant for it to go. This dialogue doesn't feel like they're coming specifically from Wednesday. It actually feels more like it's coming from a marketing team to remind us of the branding. Another example is the line about Wednesday being kooky, or the 2 snaps to get into the Nightshade library. For anyone who didn't catch those, I guess they're Easter eggs, but the Addams Family theme song by Vic Mizzy for the 1964 show was repeated many times for almost all of their shows. It goes...
They're creepy and they're kooky.
The original theme song was even remade 1-for-1 in the animated version in 2019, so it was a mainstay of the franchise. But the point I was making is that these are fan service, a big neon sign that says, hey, remember, this is an Addams Family show. You know you love them, right? For reference, by the way, I don't hate fan service, I just think it isn't done well in a lot of instances.
You know, I'm something of a scientist myself.
On paper, I actually think this is really bad fan service, but when Willem Dafoe does it, best part of the whole fucking movie. Wait, where was I? Oh yeah, Wednesday. This dialogue, for me at least, just highlights the genre confusion. What is the tone and vibe that they're trying to go for here? Also, not gonna let you get away with it, let's talk about how Wednesday has been so damn mean to Thing the entire show for no reason. Thing is not a pet to the Addams Family, he is a family member. He's valued and often celebrated, even when he's being ridiculous. The family doesn't treat him with anything but the utmost respect. The Addamses don't insult each other in a hurtful 90s sitcom way. These people aren't the Bundys, for crying out loud.
Alright, that reference might be a little old, Corbin. Can we get some fresher material for next time?
They may compete, tease, or scheme together, but always with a warmth underneath. Wednesday might tease Thing, but she'd never treat him like he was beneath her. Thing was usually a helping hand. That's his whole shtick. There's no reason to belittle the most helpful member of the family. Classically, Wednesday teases others by saying things like,
when you have a new baby, one of the other children has to die. They only need one boy.
But that's theatrical and overly dramatic, not mean.
The hit TV sensation Wednesday, brought to you by Netflix, says things like,
I'm not above breaking a few fingers.
And it means them. That's not goth, that's just cold. And that's a core issue I'm butting up against. Wednesday may have some minor elitism in her character, but when it's wielded against her family, it has no teeth. She calls Pugsley a child, but he's always in on the joke. And in a show that already sidelines most of the Addams family, which, damn, way to miss the point, Thing is the one family member who is consistently showing up for her without fail, even at risk of his own life. He is her ride or die, and it feels wrong that she's leveling such cold abuse at him. It's like if Batman roasted Alfred. I wouldn't want to see that, would you? Moving on now, there is a very fast mention that Larissa Weems didn't go to her Raven because Morticia stole the boy she liked. Oh my god, don't drag my Empress of the Evening into your high school bullshit. This whole love triangle that you're forcing on Wednesday and Morticia is just painful, and I'm not even talking about the one that landed Gomez in jail. No, I'm actually talking about the blink and you'll miss it rivalry between Weems and Morticia. The Addams family always skirted these kinds of things. Even when they do suggest former love triangles, they do it with grace and humor.
Flora, fauna, how can I compete? You're twice the woman I am.
She handles it with humility and grace. Morticia isn't out here trying to steal prom dates, alright? Let's also add the love triangle trope, and even though it's in the show as 2 triangles, I'll be gracious and only add it as 1 trope. Furthermore, how dare you reduce the English powerhouse Gwendolyn Christie into playing a flat high school cliche? Larissa Weems deserves more damn respect here, and the reduction of what could have been a beautifully complex relationship between her and Morticia is reduced to a sad, I'm 40 and still mad at somebody for stealing my prom date trope. It flattens Weems into a stereotype, the bitter ex-bestie, and Morticia into a shallow prom queen, neither of which fits their established personas. And yeah, while we're at it, let's throw I'm 40 and bitter into our tropes folder. We could have had something really juicy here that actually played into Weems' character, since she is clearly a woman who enjoys prestige and recognition. It would have been really easy to say that she resented Morticia for the recognition she gained from the Nightshade Society, or academically, or anything else. But a boy? Really? A boy? Who the hell cares? Weems is a powerful, driven, ambitious shapeshifter. She doesn't need to get upset over a guy. The moment clearly exists to add some kind of faux history between these awesome women. Kind of like a, see, they've known each other forever, there's tension. But it doesn't deepen the plot, reveal character, or inform the present conflict. It's backstory for the sake of backstory, not character development. It's fan fiction that got into the final cut. I think there's also something to be said about making 2 gorgeous women rivals as opposed to fast friends. Why do they have to be enemies? Morticia and Gomez are clearly oblivious to it, and it doesn't drive anything in the plot except that Weems left in time to witness the murder, and then told the cops that it was Morticia's fault because the boys were fighting over her. All of which she could still do without this contrived mess. This is supposed to be an Addams Family property, not an episode of Sally.
That's actually a really minute reference to the talk show that Gomez calls into in the Addams Family. Fun facts time. Fun fact time with Corbin. So this episode was fun. At least it gave me an excuse to talk about the Addams Family members that aren't Wednesday.
Although unfortunately, the verdict is kind of that no one was really spared from the character changes, as Morticia engages with people in a way that I really wouldn't expect. We start this one off speculating about what happened the night of Gomez's arrest. Wednesday describes her father as an open book.
A man given to misguided schemes and exaggerated displays of affection.
Continuing with the flashback of the murder, Larissa sees Gomez on the roof with a sword, with her telling them that it was Morticia's fault because they were fighting over her. So we're starting good right off the bat. This is the most familiar glimpse I've seen of Morticia and Gomez so far.
Seeing you in handcuffs, accused of murder, I've never loved you more.
Even in handcuffs, he's drawn to her as he's taken away. It's definitely believable that Gomez fought for Morticia and would get into a sword fight with another man to win her. Totally sounds like him actually, off to a great start. Moving on, it's parents' weekend, and Gomez is immediately loving the atmosphere, which is very refreshing considering loving absolutely everything was one of his defining character traits. Even still, they are still a little on the reserve side. I'm liking the enthusiasm though, even if it leaves me wanting a little more. Morticia's immediately worried that Wednesday won't be happy to see them because of missed messages, and Gomez reassures her with plenty of lovey-dovey words. Traditionally, the pet names for Gomez and Morticia were
Moshe.
Cara mia.
Gomez even calls her Cara mia when he's being taken away in the flashback, but in present time, Morticia calls him
Mi cariño,
which translates to my beloved in Spanish, not their traditional Italian. So break from tradition, and I'm trying to decide if I like this change. I'm thinking yes?
No. Yes. Yes. Yes!
Okay, but seriously, I do like it. I think allowing actors to show off a little bit of their heritage in their roles is a really amazing way to highlight some of their individuality. When she sees them, Wednesday allows Gomez to give her a hug, but that's about where the loving family bit ends. She then accuses them of sending her to school with a spy, vis-a-vis Thing. I'm not loving how Gomez and Morticia look afraid or trapped when Wednesday exposes their plot. I feel like they should be proud of her for something like that. They visibly relax when she says she hasn't snapped any of his fingers, which frankly reads more like they're afraid of their daughter than anything. There's also the part slightly earlier when her parents actually do show up, where she hits us pretty hard and early with the "Mom, Dad, you're embarrassing me" bit, which I guess is made a little bit more believable since Enid is feeling the same way about her family. I actually don't like it at all though, because it makes the Addamses just another family in the story, when they're not. They're the Addamses. I guess the point of Nevermore in general is that they're trying to make it so that like, this is where the Addams-like families meet up. The embarrassment just doesn't quite feel right for this family. I'm actually actually gonna add the mom, dad, you're embarrassing me trope into our tropes folder though, because it happens far too often. Wednesday lists that she's been hunted, haunted, and the target of an attempted murder, to which the parents do look proud, and Gomez exclaims,
"Nevermore, I love you so."
Now, this feels a little bit more like it's on brand. So far, this episode is doing real work at pulling the actual family out of the hole it started them in this season. The next scene with the family is Morticia being an asshole to Larissa. I mean, kind of. It's a little hard to read, honestly. I don't know if she's being genuine or not, and that's kind of the problem I have with it. I don't recall Morticia ever being outright rude to anyone in the Addams Family stories before. And the chemistry between her and Gomez feels weirdly forced, even though on paper it's written like flirtation. Talking about their yearbook, the past, memory lane, and all that, hopefully it's not just the acting, because I do really love these actors for this role. I mean, I'm not taking down my Raul Julia shrine, but, you know, it's good to accept and move on. They continue to Wednesday's integration issues, and Wednesday defends herself by basically accusing the school of being corrupt. Gomez defends her by saying that they've always encouraged her to speak her mind, which is refreshing. It feels like they have her back for what might be the first time in the show so far. Larissa suggests therapy for the family, and Morticia dodges it, but does it in a weird way. She prefaces with,
"Not to side with Wednesday."
Since when? What? Why not? It seems strangely passive-aggressive for her, which was never her brand of manipulation. Gomez is all for it though, even though he discovers that it's not that type of head shrinking. I think the Gomez characterization is really hitting the nail on the head for me though. I mean, we've seen Gomez in therapy before, but broadly, it's just nice to see him excited for anything and everything. Because Gomez wasn't just enthusiastic about loving his wife and family, it was literally all things. I would also like to point out that Tyler says that Wednesday's family cares enough about her to go to therapy with her in some weird angsty fashion. I am just drowning in teen angst. I'm honestly having flashbacks to high school, and I'm not loving it. Maybe that's what they're going for though, so I mean, good job I guess. Therapy time. Pugsley, aside from being a nothing character, does come in clutch here to volunteer that he misses being waterboarded by Wednesday. See, this is kind of what I felt was missing from episode 1 when he made his debut. This gamification of cruel and violent things that the family gets up to. Morticia adds that it's torture having Wednesday away, but luckily Fester's rack fits too. Gomez and her dissolve into lovey-dovey stuff and Wednesday yells at them to stop, which feels weird, but okay. She's never really had a problem with them doing that before. And I feel like it might be a little bit more on brand for her to kind of tell them to focus rather than stop. Next, she jumps into accusing them of keeping murderous secrets. So the thing is, I really don't understand why this feels like a secret. It feels forced and strange, like they're trying to add a layer to the mix. Gomez Addams has never had anything to hide, ever. He is open, theatrical, and proud of everything he's done, especially the weird shit. He relishes in telling outlandish stories, often to the discomfort of normal people. And hiding a murder accusation implies shame, guilt, or fear, emotions that Gomez typically rejects or gleefully mocks. The Addams Family humor comes from their comfort with the morbid and illegal, presented with total sincerity and no sense of danger. Gomez has gleefully joked about duels, buried enemies, and shady investments, all with zero remorse. For him to be rattled by a decades-old murder case really strips away his defining fearlessness. In the original dynamic, he would have turned the accusation into a theatrical performance, not a family scandal. The idea that the family would feel shame about anything, or withhold about it, to the family no less, just makes no sense. Which is truly a shame since I was really digging the work that Luis Guzman is doing for him, hand in hand with the writing to bring the character to life. But this is kind of harshing the vibe for me. This subplot adds conventional teen drama conflict, which we can actually add as another trope in our tropes folder. The too smart daughter feeling betrayed by her secretive, fallible father after discovering his deep dark secret. All too familiar. But the Addamses are not meant to be a normal family. Their very existence is satire. Making Gomez a flawed, guarded dad turns him into a cliche, disrupting the unshakable family bond that defines the Addamses. The Gomez murder subplot was designed to infuse this mystery with a second mystery. But more than that, it overrides everything audiences expect from Gomez. Flamboyance, openness, and joyful absurdity. He is a flamboyant romantic, a man who probably committed tax fraud for fun, but he is not subtle. So when Wednesday paints him as the man burdened by his dark past who hides from his daughter and kinda hopes it'll go away, I run out of good faith to give this iteration of Gomez. Like, who is this secretive guy? Because that's not Gomez. He's the most emotionally honest man in horror comedy history. He'd rather be drawn and quartered than break Morticia's trust. The "you lied to me" scene feels like it was copy-pasted from Riverdale or fucking 13 Reasons Why. Gomez doesn't do brooding, he does sword fights and tangos. This might work in other shows, but it violates the whole Addams formula, where everyone is confidently, comedically messed up in the open. Honestly, if classic Gomez had murdered somebody, he'd probably have signed the confession in calligraphy and framed it. Which actually gets me thinking about these kind of spin-off shows. Gomez as a character isn't just born into the world. I mean, maybe he is, but more than likely he was molded. I personally have an interest in seeing a Gomez Addams spin-off show, kind of learn like how he got to where he is emotionally, the showmanship, the acceptance of death and dread. What was his mother like? What was his brother like? Or maybe I'm just latching onto the flashbacks when Gomez was young and threw himself under the bus for Morticia. Because I really like that somewhat insecure version of him, where he still felt super familiar, but had to kind of come into being himself.
What was I saying? Oh right, therapy conclusions.
Morticia seems strangely aggressive as well, first yelling at Wednesday, then the doctor, then finally outside at Wednesday again, while Gomez remains silent. And especially seeing his affection for her later, it feels kind of strange that he would just let this happen. How often do we remember seeing Gomez and Morticia not on the same page about anything? Overall, no one in the therapy scene really comes out unscathed, except maybe Pugsley, which is good generally speaking, but sucks broadly since he's the least developed character, and probably the least important to the story. I kind of wish he was more involved in the story, since it was kinda his fault that she's in Nevermore to begin with. Wait, hold up, doesn't it kind of sound on brand for the Addamses to be proud of Wednesday for defending her brother instead of whatever the fuck they're doing now? I'm just saying, his bullies were the reason that Wednesday even has this story. Finally, on to the next scene. Wednesday watches Morticia visit Garrett's grave, tearing the head off of a rose and leaving the stem. She's acting cagey and actually looks kinda angry, but I kinda feel like leaving a thorny rose there would be a compliment for the Addams family. I mean, we've seen Morticia arranging a vase of thorny stems before. Immediately following, Wednesday accuses Morticia of being untruthful because she saw her going to the grave. Which, ridiculous, but whatever. Gomez and Morticia then have a weird conversation where they're definitely giving some cagey in-cahoot vibes. Gomez wants to tell her, and Morticia says that she'll never believe them, and they'll just have to wait for something more morbid to catch her attention. Excuse me, do we have an example of Wednesday not believing something that her parents told her? And wouldn't believe what? With hindsight, we see that Garrett tried to kill Gomez, Morticia fended him off, and died of nightshade. Like, what's so fucking crazy about that? Either way, the whole conversation is just giving very strange vibes because Gomez is taking on a more passive role and Morticia sounds nearly angry about the situation. Again, not on the same page. Promptly after, Gomez is arrested in the middle of the quad in front of everybody for Garrett's murder. He looks ashamed as he's quietly led away. This again feels odd to me for all the reasons we've listed previously. It feels like it would be more in line with his character to have some thinly veiled statement about handcuffs or a joke about reminiscing about the last time they arrested and tased him, something like that. So after all the pretense, we get the scene of Gomez in jail having a conversation with Wednesday and Thing. It's here that we get the official story about Garrett Gates. And they're kind of losing me with Gomez a bit here, which sucks given how much I enjoyed this rendition of him. Reciting the events seems so sterile and dull. It lacks a certain dramatic flair, even if the dialogue is written with more flowery language. Tell him what you feel.
You have a hair on your face.
Honestly, I feel more recognition in the Gomez and Morticia characters of their younger portrayals, which feels weird to say considering we see them so little. This scene, though, actually does feel a bit more familiar, or at least more in line with the characters we recognize. There's still a strange amount of restraint and coldness between them, especially when Wednesday smacks him down for being too emotional and he reels back and apologizes. Not to say that Gomez always seemed the type to live out loud regardless of who's around, but it feels strange to have Wednesday verbally smack him down like that for being himself. Like I said in the therapy scene, maybe a bit more like, hey, focus up, we don't have all day, would be more appropriate. But like, when is she uncomfortable with his affection? Either way, Gomez feels subdued. Very, very subdued. Even as they bond over some childhood memories they shared. It's actually a very sweet moment as Wednesday admits that Gomez is the reason she is strong and independent, and able to navigate a world full of treachery and prejudice. She's grateful that he helped her understand that it is so important that she never lose sight of herself, that he was a good father. I feel like there's something to be said about showing and not telling. Like, would it have killed them to get some inserts of these two actually doing fun activities they describe, instead of just talking?
Fry, look what you did. She won't shut up.
Gomez's restrained gracias leaves me feeling flattened in the scene, but I suppose an argument could be made that he was doing it for her, since she's apparently uncomfortable with displays of affection now, which, whatever.
Moving right along, Fuzzy.
Wednesday finds Pugsley at the end of a pier, outwardly sullen, telling her to go away, which seems kind of strange for Pugsley's character. Traditionally, he was a character that was the joyful son to Wednesday's moon. Here, he's sullen, sensitive, I'd even go as far to say fragile. I mean, yes, of course, his father was just arrested and taken away, but in a sense, it seems strange to see him so withdrawn. I'm feeling like a better emotion for him could be optimism, where he's kind of like, not in denial, but confident in his father's ability to either clear his name or straight up break out of prison, because, you know, they're the Addamses. A more natural scene for these two could have been Wednesday finding Pugsley in the hive, surrounded by maps in the town of Jericho and the jailhouse, and he has dynamite and he's prepping with Thing. Or even a simple line where he tells Wednesday, oh, you know no prison can hold father. The saving grace of this scene is that they're using grenades to go fishing. It at least alludes to the shining beacon of chaos that we're used to seeing in him. It's pretty transparent how he's being used as a prop to encourage Wednesday to continue the investigation, which she was gonna do anyway, so it doesn't really matter for this story specifically. After that, we cut to Morticia in the Nightshade Clubhouse and Wednesday finding her there. This really is the Addams Family episode, isn't it? This scene is important for the show specifically, giving us both historical and recent past exposition, as well as a bit of key evidence that helps crack the case file. Oh right, and that Morticia was the one who really killed Garrett and Gomez took the rap for her, which does seem very Gomez-like of him. Which wraps up with Wednesday grave robbing with her mother, giving us a cringeworthy moment where Morticia wants to not chip a goddamn fingernail digging up a grave. Let's just all take a second and remember that when they found out that the Addams house was repossessed by Fester, Gomez fell into a depression and Morticia got a job. Just saying. There is a nice touch here with Wednesday smelling the freshly opened grave and really enjoying it. I do enjoy Morticia and Gomez in jail together, absolutely unable to keep their hands off of each other. Naturally, Wednesday took a finger from the body, explaining away the poisoning. And of course, she gets a vision that fills in the rest of the details that nobody else could ever possibly know. The whole vision thing is treated like a lazy Deus Ex Machina when they can't figure out any other way to have important information arrive at our protagonists. Which, I guess, is very convenient, but I still don't love it. Oh wow, I really forgot that the mayor knew about all this conveniently, and immediately caves into the pressure. Kinda feels like we could have skipped the vision part then if he was just going to give us all the answers anyway. anyway. So, despite my affection for this version of Gomez, I'm still not sure how I feel about this version of Morticia. She just seems angry and indignant. Her ethereal grace and unflappable acceptance that allowed her to float through life and shift the attention of a room has been traded out for a snappy, defensive, secretive woman. Morticia was a driving force in many of the other narratives we've seen her in, but in the Wednesday show, she's just a source for mother-daughter contention. Like a PTA mom who just got to the bake sale and realized that Cindy Myers also made cupcakes, which just feels so anti-Morticia. Even this moment at the end where Morticia reminds Wednesday that she has her own path and her history at the school is just history, it gives this feeling of desperation that is more tuned for a tired mom cliche, only for it to be answered with Wednesday being indignant anyway. So, episode 5 in the can. It gave us the most Addams Family we've seen so far, for better or worse. Some characters looked and felt better than others, but hey, I guess that's the nature of having an ensemble. I mean, what I would say is supposed to be an ensemble. I talked a little bit about it, but yeah, Wednesday was never supposed to stand on her own outside of her family. She was part of something bigger. And seeing her family here, changed or not, only serves to remind me of that. Episode 6 has some really wonderful stuff in it. Right off the bat, Wednesday uses her necklace her mother gave her to have a seance for Goody. She finally listens to her mother and accepts this small piece of herself that they share. Some small bit of cohesion and acceptance rather than railing constantly against her mother and family feels good. But again, it just feels like it could have been going on the whole time. I guess we could say that she's turned a corner with her family after having them thrown in jail and Wednesday helping absolve them. But truthfully, I'm just feeling like this should have been the vibe the whole time. I didn't want her to turn this corner with her family because I didn't want her to be at odds with them at all. Since episode 6 doesn't have much family interaction, let's talk about this concept for a moment. To illustrate a point, let's talk about my least favorite Star Wars movie. It's not the prequels, they ain't that bad, calm down. It most certainly isn't my beloved original trilogy, which means I am spoiled for choice on which of the Disney sequels is my least favorite. Well, it may surprise you to hear, or not, since most of you are video essay people and have surely heard this take before, that my least favorite Star Wars movie is episode 7, The Force Awakens. It's straight up a copy-paste job from A New Hope, but that isn't even the reason I hate it. People who haven't seen Star Wars are like so lost, but stick with me here. In The Force Awakens, the decision was made after 30 years that a new empire has emerged, Luke is a recluse, and the Jedi are so incredibly sparse in number that they might as well not exist. That doesn't even mention anything specific. These are broad strokes we're talking about here. These are just world-building events that absolutely ruin any chance of the sequels actually being any good. It's like a house, right? You build the foundation first and everything rises up from that. Well, if your foundation is shit, it doesn't matter how amazing the rest of the house is, it's gonna be shit. So it doesn't matter that episode 8 is a middle finger to the franchise and episode 9 is...
Somehow Palpatine returned.
Quite possibly the worst writing I've ever seen in my entire life. Episode 7 started it all. It wrote them into a place where absolutely nothing is different and nothing has changed. And so, back to Wednesday. This getting over familial problems and resolving the conflict with Morticia shouldn't have even been something we're talking about. This is The Last Jedi thing we're talking about, but we wouldn't even need to talk about it if it wasn't for The Force Awakens. Growth is good, but this just feels like growth on bad foundation. She shouldn't have had to grow like this. It shouldn't have been part of the conflict, and yet it is. It was plagued from the start, and because of that, we spent 5 episodes with Wednesday absolutely ripping her parents a new one for no reason. The actual reason is because the writers wanted to tell a specific kind of story and they needed Wednesday to be at odds with her parents for that. Come on, Lance, be analytical, it's your job. Wednesday's frustration with her parents begins when they send her to Nevermore. It kind of feels like their hands are tied in the matter, so misplaced anger at best, but that's where the anger starts. Here's the thing though, given how her parents, and hell, even Wednesday, have been characterized in the past, I don't see how this happens. But I could see under different circumstances how Wednesday could have enjoyed the new experience. It's not like she loved her old school. Well, actually, it seems like she might have, saying she admires the sadism of putting adolescents under the same roof. So maybe she misses her school, but then she would probably be sad and upset rather than mad. Like, what are her parents gonna do? I mean, I actually could see a minor writing tweak where Wednesday is actually mad at her parents for not bribing their teachers, or making a donation to make this go away or something, but I don't see a world where they didn't actually try to do this if it was an option. It feels very on brand and supportive in the way their family would disregard the rules and laws for their children. So with this tweak, they do it, or try to at least, but the school isn't having it, leading to Wednesday being angry at them, I suppose. Okay, so next I say, but if the school wouldn't let them do that, then it's also not their fault, and Wednesday shouldn't be mad at them for trying. I keep running into the same problem where no matter how hard I try to make this work, Wednesday really shouldn't be mad at her parents. The writers wanted to tell a story where Wednesday was on her own, and the conduit they chose for that was that she was mad at her parents. But no matter how I slice it up, I can't find a way that this works with how their characters are. They were always so tight-knit, them against the world, so to put Wednesday in this place just, it feels impossible. There's a good comparison to be made here when Wednesday is sent to Camp Chippewa in the Addams Family Values. She obviously doesn't want to be there, evidenced by her drinking drinking poison. But she doesn't complain. There's no frustration or anger directed at her family. Matter of fact, I would imagine the only anger she actually has towards anyone in this situation is the camp director, since they're rays of sunshine and she's not. And then later, when she finds out her uncle is in danger and is stopped at every turn from being able to help him, it turns into a very valid reason for an Addams to be mad at someone. A lot of writing starts with, okay, what if Batman killed somebody, and working your way backwards towards that outcome. Once you know where you're going, you can find factors that lead up to it. And I can't believe that they said, okay, what if Wednesday was mad at her parents and they came up with this as the solution? Like, yeah, congrats, you reached what you were aiming for, but you sacrificed a tremendous amount of character to do it.
And that about wraps up the episode. I don't have much to say about Goody Addams since I don't really have a reference point to how Okay. I don't have much to say about Goody Addams since I don't really have much of a reference point on how Wednesday interacts with her extended family.
I can say that she's relatively cold and calculating upon meeting a new person, which feels on brand for her, so A+, I guess. Episode 7 is absolutely the best episode of the season. Let's start here.
My name is Fester. It means to rot.
He might be my favorite part of the show. Unfortunately, not even he could make this show funny, which is unfortunately saying something. He's as close as we do get to something familiar in the Addams Family franchise. Loud, weird, unapologetic, even a little mysterious on his own. Honestly, I feel like he accidentally walked in from a better show. His first appearance is a mysterious lurking figure on the outskirts of a funeral. Wednesday pursues the creeper, hoping that he'll give her answers to her riveting mystery. He seems to evade her with superhuman ease, and though she recovers from the drop he gets on her, he catches the blade she thrusts on him. Cool umbrella sword, actually. Too bad we'll never see it again. With it between his hands, he sends a shock of electricity down the metal to disarm her. Classic Fester. The cherry on top is that he compliments her on the move.
It's a beautiful moment of deadly playfulness that we've just kind of been missing. He even made Wednesday smile.
However, we are thrust pretty quickly back to this weirdly brooding tone of seriousness when Wednesday invites Fester into the clubhouse. He tries to eat the bees and she chastises him for it. Man, we really don't get to have any fun, huh? Let the dude be weird. We're already setting a tone for tolerating Fester's authentic weirdness rather than celebrating it. Functionally, Fester is an unfortunate exposition dump.
Till one night she transformed in the middle of a Chopin sonata.
Fry, look what you did. She won't shut up.
Thank you for casually mentioning your first lobotomy, though, and the casual lore dump on how worldly, weird, and fantastic you are, Fester. Ran into a hide during your vacation at the Zurich Institute for the Criminally Insane? That's my man. Unfortunately, it feels weird in a vacuum. Like, he can't be the only weird one, but at the moment he kind of is.
But you know, lobotomies are kind of like tattoos. You can't just get one.
That's a solid joke. Too bad Wednesday can't even be bothered. Come on, at least crack a smile for the dude. So despite Fester's best efforts at being an exposition dump, we still run into a problem. We don't know enough about hides. They're the super mysterious of the super mysterious. No books on them whatsoever. Oh, sorry, never mind. Fester knows exactly what book might have mentioned them. At Nevermore. Even though he just mentioned that Gomez was the smart one and he never went there. Not only that, he apparently knows all about the Founder's life, too. Fester is the embodiment of that weird uncle that drinks and knows things, which unfortunately in this context is detrimental. Because if the show is going to be super serious, removing so many of the comedic elements, I have to ask, how does he know these things exactly? I guess I can be charitable and say that it's not too crazy for Fester to know about the Founder's life since he does have a penchant for knowing strange and unusual things. You know, I do wonder about where Fester went to school if he didn't go to Nevermore with Gomez. Sounds like that would be really tough for him with how inseparable they are. Wait, we're just gonna lock Fester in the hideout so he can't interact with anybody else? That's such a waste.
Walter, you're never gonna see him again.
Fester is best when his manic, chaotic energy is bouncing off of everyone else. You can't put the Addamses in a vacuum. They need more than that. This feels like a cameo at best, or a weird guest star of the week kind of situation. Although I don't have to be too mad about it since Fester pops in miraculously down at the secret library without anyone seeing him. I am enjoying how seamless his dialogue is and how familiar it feels to the iterations of the past. Speckling his language with macabre references and satirical silliness that we love about this family. Which I feel like is a bit refreshing since there hasn't really been any satire in the groundbreaking television show of the year Netflix produced called Wednesday. You know, satire, like the main thing that the Addams Family did in the past. Thing and Fester get into a fight about a previous job they did stealing something, and honestly, we're back to being in very familiar territory again. Like being wrapped all nice and cozy in an Iron Maiden. Alluding to Fester's worldliness and his criminality feels like something I absolutely would have complained about if they didn't include it. Of course, Wednesday has to put a stop to it. After all, we do have books to find so she can find out which one of her super dreamy boyfriend prospects are going to betray her. Come on, take this seriously. See, that's a joke, because that concept is totally something the Addams Family would have made a joke about, and when Fester arrives to add a bit of levity, he is shut down from it, which is ridiculous.
Oh, nice little Easter egg here, though. That's Iggy It's painting.
Next up, we see some of Thing's expert safe-cracking skills, which reminds me, we haven't really seen much of criminality in the show, have we? In the past, we saw Pugsley stealing stop signs and talks of them breaking the law almost constantly. But in comparison, it feels like we've been downright lawful so far. After this, Fester goes up to Wednesday's room as she goes through the Book of Outcast to find out more about Hydes. It's a nice expositional lore dump, if only because it feels like it's coming from a natural source, within her family. Frankly, at this point, it's refreshing to have exposition done from anything other than a vision. Fester gives a little bit of color commentary, though, and it comes off a little bit too disapproving.
Anyone willing to unlock a Hyde is a next-level sicko.
It feels like he should have been more excited about that rather than worried. At first I thought I was being picky, but no, I'm gonna dig in here. The Addams family is full of psychos, Fester in particular. He should be like really excited about this prospect. He should be eager to try and find the Hyde's master. Okay, so nearly being discovered by Thornhill, Fester suddenly vanishes. Not magic, he doesn't have sudden invisibility, it's skill. Weird, strange, unusual skill. He's a conniving little weirdo and it is fabulous. He even starts to giggle when Wednesday starts getting close to his hiding place. This is the silliness that we're used to seeing from this family. Even then, he gives Wednesday some applicable, unsolicited advice about being a lone wolf and doing whatever you want. Like, apparently he does. But he does it without a chip on his shoulder, or a begrudging spite, which is a part that Wednesday doesn't really seem to have. And even then, he always seems to come back to his family. Like, sure, he'll disappear and be a weirdo for a while, but he anchors himself around the people he loves. Which, I don't have to tell you again, that Wednesday just refuses to do. Wednesday enlists Fester's help to put a tracker on her love interest, since apparently she's tech illiterate, or at least tech averse, which I suppose makes sense, if she's going to be more interested in witchcraft like her mother. And he also gives her some wheels as a mode of transportation. He's a Deus Ex Machina machine, and yet he's already better and more interesting than every other character in the show. He really did just step out of a better show onto this one. The next thing of note is heading to the cafe.
You remind me of Weathervane.
Here we see Fester eating ketchup and offering to put Wednesday's second love interest into a sleeper hold. An interesting bit here is that Wednesday states out loud what we saw happen in the last few scenes. She normally does this with Thing, but now we get Fester as a sounding board, I suppose. To be very clear, they're doing this so they can say out loud everything that was visual, so that people not paying attention or who are on their phones don't miss out on the story. Fester gives the kid a little zap and asks for more ketchup drink, which is really fun to watch. And then Fester falls into the background while we allow Wednesday and number 2 to get paranoid about the Hyde in the book. Excellent. I say sarcastically, as Fester was the best part of the show. Which makes it all the more hurtful when he pulls a vanishing act the moment that the cops show up. Nothing gold can stay, I suppose. Oh, okay, it may have just been worth it because the bank robbery suspect from dear old Sheriff Dad is Fester. That's really wonderful, actually.
Fester's the black sheep. He's harmless.
Are we sure about that exactly? Armed robbery is what he's wanted for, but beyond that, he's proving to be the most capable person in the entire show. He stopped Wednesday's sword attack effortlessly, and evaded everybody in the show several times, using skills that seem to be more magical than the actual magic scene in the show. He can send electricity through his body at will, and subsists off of bees and ketchup. Harmless. Okay. Alright, let's work for a living. Wednesday is likely saying this since Fester is somebody who could actually hurt people without thinking. Just wanted to point out that if you thought he was harmless, you weren't really paying attention. I know I haven't talked too much about Things so far, but that's because a lot of their interactions basically boil down in the same way. Wednesday leaves him to guard something for her, and Thing gives her shit for whatever her trouble of the week is. A lot of the time he's acting as a conscience or the invisible hand to move the plot along and do things that need to be done while she's, I don't know, getting into fights with the principal or whatever. And since that's kind of the template for all of her interactions with Thing, I don't really have much to say about it beyond that. Now, I didn't necessarily want to go into the Wednesday Addams romance, but I really can't help it. Let's start here. Wednesday Addams has done romance before. Let's get the big one out of the way, Joel Glicker. Addams Family Values doesn't necessarily pair these two together. It more so centers their relationship on his open adoration for someone who's nothing like the suburban Barbies that he's used to. Her chilly acceptance of this worship and support to help her overthrow the status quo is what's appealing to him. Let's not forget that Joel also collected serial killer trading cards independent of Pugsley. He clearly fits with them better than most, and she never compromised who she was for it. There's also an example in the 60s TV show, an episode where Wednesday has a crush on a classmate, Robespierre Courtney, and asks all the people in her family how to attract a man. It's honestly pretty cringe and suffers from the 60s mentality, product of its time, I suppose. But the show lightens it by having each family member give her a weapon to catch him, just in case the advice doesn't work. Classic Addams Family. In the end, the boy is no fun, and Wednesday realizes that Robespierre sucks anyway. The scene wraps with a beautiful semization from Gomez.
That just proves it. He's not our type.
The Addamses are perfectly at peace with the idea that some people just can't hang, and that's okay. They don't need to change who they are. Then there's also the Broadway musical, which I haven't mentioned because number 1, I haven't seen it, and number 2, from what I've seen from online clips, it struggles with similar issues when it comes to the central theme of the Addams Family franchise. Wednesday gets engaged to a normal dude, and then she asks her family to be normal so that she doesn't scare him away. Addams is being asked to conform from their own daughter, no less, backwards at best, and an egregious misunderstanding of the core principles of the Addams Family at worst. It looks like a fun Broadway musical, but tonally off from the franchise. franchise, in the same exact way that Wednesday is a teen mystery show, but not quite fitting in with the rest of the franchise. Which brings us to this romance scene inside the crypt. It's quite cringy to watch, and I don't mean that in a fun Addams kind of way. I mean it more of a, oh my god, will Will Ferrell stop ruining this beautiful goodbye to Steve Carell after his 7 years of The Office kind of cringe. It feels like a scene from every rom-com about the loner girl who just needs an unrelenting enough guy to wear her down. I mean violate her boundaries. I mean show her that she can be vulnerable. And it's the absolute worst offense that an Addams Family situation can get. Predictable. There's no twist, there's nothing unexpected. From the moment he brings her here and you see the blanket on the floor, you know exactly what's gonna play out. Yes, I hear the people at the back saying he's trying to meet her halfway so that he can show her he can be cool by taking her to a crypt, someplace she's comfortable. Sure, fine, whatever. Good on paper, bad in execution. Let's talk a bit more nuanced. What the hell is happening with Wednesday's character? She's all over the place in this scene. She spends the entire show openly antagonizing her roommate for being all bubblegum and nail polish, and then she enjoys watching Legally Blonde for the torture that it is. Enid is Legally Blonde. They're like the same person. It's almost as if the writers decided to give up on consistency and just have Wednesday react however they needed to have the plot move forward. Which is super disappointing because number one, it's lazy, number two, it's bad writing, and number three, it doesn't feel like something that would happen to an Addams. Whatever though, it's all a ruse anyway, so somebody can steal something from Wednesday's room and Thing gets stabbed through the palm while protecting it. She's actually displaying emotion here when she runs him immediately to Fester. It feels like a good dramatic moment. It's family oriented, the stakes are high because Thing acts as her external conscience and humanity, and I suppose there is a good chance he could die here. Much more of a chance than Wednesday at least. Trying to save him is poetic. The good moments keep rolling in as Fester uses his electricity as a defibrillator. Even though they're funny, they have practical use, but more importantly, it's creative. Fester is absolutely giving us the most bang for our buck here. Thing eventually comes back around and Wednesday swears vengeance in an emotional moment. I'd applaud it if it didn't play directly into the she needs emotional growth point we talked about earlier. She also mentions that the cops found Fester's bike, queuing up Fester's exit, since we can't have him actively being more amazing than our protagonist. I do like the moment where Wednesday tells Fester he should tell Pugsley that she's his favorite, because it'll give him a complex. It feels very similar to their traditional relationship. I'm split on if I want her making more excuses for him because
he's only a child.
I guess as he gets older, Wednesday should find new ways to torment him. Alright, there's only one other scene I want to talk about in this episode, but it's not really about the Addams family. Well, not in the strict sense. Larissa Weems mentions to Wednesday that she is protecting our Nevermore family.
Which also includes you.
This kind of confirms to me that the school is supposed to be a replacement for the family dynamic of the Addams family. But if that's the case, it does not come close. It misses the point we've been talking about. We'll actually save that for a little later because I have a whole section on the new characters and why they fall flat in the conclusion section. But for now, let's wrap up our journey with episode 8. Alright, I know I talked about him a little bit before, but Thing ends up carrying nearly all the important moments of the show, and we need to talk about it a little bit. He bursts in on Enid and Gorgon boy, there's a lot of characters, okay? And tells her all about Weems being killed and Wednesday being dragged to the Crackstone Crypt. He even tells her about the Nightshades. Thing is seriously the most consistent character this show has, and possibly the most consistent for the entire franchise. He may not take center stage, but his whole function is to be a helping hand. In the 60s TV show, he routinely showed up to do things like helping Morticia knit yarn and lighting Gomez's cigars for him. In the Addams Family, Thing is the person that follows Morticia back to the house and then travels back to the motel to alert Gomez about the danger she's in, which is the alert for the family's dramatic counterattack that saves Morticia and defeats Dr. Pendenstaff. In Addams Family Values, Thing shows up at Fester and Debbie's house, hitting Debbie with the car while she's got Fester at gunpoint, and then drives Fester away from the scene, saving his life and bringing him back to his family. He's always been a character behind the scenes, there to support the family on every occasion. Considering the rampant character assassinations happening in the Wednesday show, at least they understood that Thing is supposed to be a helping handyman, even if they kinda screwed up the relationship between Wednesday and him. And guys, that's really all I have to say about episode 8 as far as family goes. Let me put it like this. Have you noticed anything?
Rather, you notice something that is not there to be noted?
The Addams Family are not in this episode.
That's right. It sounds really weird to me that this Addams Family property doesn't have the Addams Family to close out the season. But okay, whatever. It's Wednesday's story. But I really can't emphasize enough that Wednesday doesn't really work without her family. I mean, she works because the story has been gerrymandered and the world is the way it is so she can exist. But where is the family dynamic? The only showing of the family in this episode is at the very end, and it's Lurch of all people. The lack of them being there to pick her up is strange. Maybe there's a reason for their lack of family reunion, but Wednesday nearly died twice. I mean 3 times, but really who's counting?
Who needs courage when you have a gun?
And Thing almost died as well. I mean, nobody gonna show up and get those details? It feels like a missed opportunity to poke fun at the ridiculousness of the season.
He's from space. He came here to steal a necklace from a wizard.
Oh, and I didn't even include that on that list, Gomez and Morticia's former classmate fucking died while clearing Wednesday's name. It feels really fucking odd to not have the family unit here to greet her in some way. Because it's not like some random person just died. These are people that the family interacted with, had history with, like knew intimately. It kind of just feels disrespectful that they wouldn't show up. And for all of the things that the Addamses were, they were not disrespectful. And that's
That's the entire show, from the Addams Family perspective anyway.
It's really strange to me that this Addams Family property didn't really have a whole lot of the Addams Family in it. Maybe Wednesday will evolve into one of those franchises that separates itself from the original and we don't even remember what the original is anymore. Like Frasier splitting off from Cheers or Beyonce becoming bigger than Destiny's Child. But as it stands right now, especially because they're still using the family as part of the story, you cannot just ignore the rest of the Addams Family from Wednesday. Honestly, that's kind of why I made this video to begin with. It baffled me that they could have a story with Wednesday that didn't involve her family. The biggest comparable moment I can think about is in the aforementioned Camp Chippewa in the Addams Family Values. But that entire story hinged on the idea that A, Fester's new wife was trying to get rid of them, and B, once they learned that the family was in danger, they did everything possible to return to them. That level of urgency being missing from the rest of the family in episode 8 just feels like a really strange twist for this loving family. But we've talked about that already, I don't need to beat it to death. So how do we wrap up? I want to talk about another concept that I mentioned in episode 7, where it seems like the hit Netflix show starring iconic actress Jenny Ortega, Wednesday, is trying to essentially make surrogates out of the extended cast of characters. For one reason or another, it doesn't work, but damn do they try. So let's talk about the new addition to Wednesday's life. Wednesday introduces several new characters who feel like narrative stand-ins or emotional surrogates to try to fill roles that were traditionally occupied by the core Addams Family members, but with less charm and authenticity. None of these characters are inherently bad, but they do belong to a different show. A mystery drama about teen monsters? Sure. An Addams Family drama? Not so much. Even when the Addams Family franchise included other monsters and characters, they were almost always family members or people from their past, and they didn't come with lore, world building, or powers. They were eccentric, morbid, or grotesque, but it was played for satire and comedy, not drama or mystery. Cousin It is a mumbling pile of hair. The Amore twins are conjoined twins who live in a mental asylum. It preserves the satire. Weird people doing weird things without apology or justification. No mythos, no rules, just vibes. The lore didn't need to be explained or put into a hierarchy, it was a lifestyle. New characters were tools for exploring family values, love, loyalty, eccentricity. They weren't introduced to build love triangles, rivalries, or chosen one plotlines. They were helping expand the central Addams Family spirit I mentioned an hour ago. The franchise never became about a larger supernatural community either. It was always the Addams versus suburbia, society, polite norms. That was the entire joke. Family came to visit, everyone was weird, and then quietly went back to wherever they came from, I guess. It allowed us to see the Addams Family as an oasis of weird in a sea of normalcy. However, when the whole world is weird, there's not enough contrast.
And when everyone's super,
no one will be.
Traditionally, it's been Addams versus the world, but the show makes it Wednesday versus her teen feelings. This is only further exemplified by the new characters being young adult tropes in spooky cosplay, compared to the older character monsters who were just weird without explanation. Let's review them. Enid Sinclair, our show's werewolf and Wednesday's quirky best friend. She's sincere and heartwarming, and her purpose is to be the emotional foil for Wednesday's growth. Bianca Barclay, our season's siren with the intention of being a rival turned ally. She's mysterious and tragic in our purpose to fuel social hierarchy. Xavier Thorpe, our psychic artist and our first of 2 love interests. He's brooding and wounded in our purpose of driving the romantic subplot, which leads us to Tyler Galpin, our Hyde and the normie love interest number 2. He's deceptive and angsty in his purpose of being a plot twist and betrayal. Then we have Principal Weems, our shapeshifter authority figure for this story. She's cold and enigmatic in driving the mentor-mentee conflict. And now let's talk about the older characters and their roles in the story. First, we have Grandmama, the witchy and chaotic matriarch figure. She's warm but dark in our purpose of expanding the family's weird heritage. Next, we have Cousin It, a mumbling pile of hair set to show us an extended family. He's a surrealist gag in our purpose of emphasizing unapologetic strangeness. Then we have Pugsley Addams, who's the cheerfully twisted younger brother and companion. He's playfully morbid in his purpose of contrasting Wednesday and celebrating sibling weirdness. Then we have Lurch, the kind of Frankenstein's butler turned deadpan servant. He's got dry humor in his purpose of contrasting the outside world. And lastly, we have Morticia Addams, the gothly elegant matriarch and loving mother of the story. She's cool and darkly romantic in her purpose of embodying dark femininity and emotional support for our characters. Notice that the traditional weirdos are just that, weirdos being weird and living their best life. So much of the tone is to support comedic ends, which allows the characters to just be characters instead of being plot devices to push Wednesday forward. In Wednesday, everyone has powers, secrets, and trauma. It's supposed to be dark, cold, and serious. Now, that's not awful in and of itself, but it's outside of the usual formula for an Addams Family property. I mean, the Star Trek movies were quite the departure from the Next Generation, but that doesn't make them bad on paper. Just in practice. No, I can't even say that. The Next Generation Star Trek movies aren't bad, and I will die on that hill.
The line must be drawn here.
What was I talking about? The weirdness in the show is specifically meant to be supernatural, rule-based, and used for drama between our characters. And that's the problem with it. You may notice this is actually kind of contrary to what traditional writing norms would tell us, which is that things should have a purpose, explanation, or contribute to the plot of the story in a more meaningful way than it's just that way. The exception is usually comedy, though. Things in comedies can just be silly for the sake of being silly.
I have done nothing but teleport bread for 3 days.
It doesn't have to make sense, it's just for a laugh. I can't think of a better example than the Addams Family specifically, since their comedy was anti-making sense. Take this example. Pugsley and Wednesday drop their baby brother off of the 2nd floor. Why? I don't know. It's funny though. It's subversive, it's unexpected. But everything in the Wednesday show tries to take itself just a bit too seriously, really feeling like it needs to justify these new characters. So now let's really dig into these new characters and talk about what they're supposed to be. And we'll find out together if my hypothesis was correct, that the new characters are just supposed to be surrogates for the old ones.
Are you feeling okay? You look a little pale.
Enid Sinclair is supposed to be the Pugsley stand-in, or the emotional mirror. Wednesday's colorful, bubbly werewolf roommate at Nevermore. She becomes the emotional foil to Wednesday, like Pugsley often was in earlier versions, but more sincere and sympathetic, and with entirely too much attention focused on traditional interests like boys and social norms. Instead of playing sibling rivalry, the relationship is written as a forced odd couple friendship, complete with a falling out and a big reconciliation moment. Enid is likable and a fan favorite, but her presence makes it easier for the writers to remove Pugsley almost entirely. The family bond is swapped out for a roommate as found family trope. It repositions Wednesday as a lonely heroine in need of emotional growth rather than a confident outsider.
Stop making enemies and start making a few friends.
Principal Weems is the Morticia proxy, with drama. Tall, elegant, and commanding, while hiding secrets as the headmaster of Nevermore. She takes the place of the maternal authority figure that Morticia should have embodied. She challenges, scolds, and occasionally mentors Wednesday, but always at arm's length. Morticia is practically exiled from the story after episode 2. Weems takes her place, but the relationship is adversarial, not loving, swapping out the warm, spooky mom for the gothic Dumbledore with baggage. It creates a top-down adult authority system for Wednesday to rebel against. But again, this is a teen mystery convention, not an Addams Family system. The Addamses normally disrupt institutions, but here, Wednesday is in one of them, and the principal serves to re-anchor her into that system.
Let's see if you bleed in black and white.
Bianca Barclay, rival and frenemy. The confident, cunning siren and the queen bee of Nevermore. She acts as a social rival, the type of adversary that Wednesday never really cared about in the Addams Family setting because they didn't care about social norms. Her character is built to fuel a typical arc of competition and reluctant respect, which further assimilates Wednesday into genre norms rather than letting her remain as an unbothered anomaly. She interjects social dynamics that feel lifted from Riverdale or The Magicians, not the Addams Family satire. The show treats her siren power seriously, where the Addamses would have found a way to make it hilarious or grotesque.
Is he like your pet?
Xavier Thorpe and Tyler Galpin, the love interest placeholders. Wednesday's 2 romantic plot devices. Xavier, the brooding psychic architect, and Tyler, the seemingly sweet normie barista with a dark secret. They push Wednesday into a storyline about her being the chosen one and having a love triangle. Neither resemble any of the Addams Family characters in spirit, but they both contribute to the erasure of her classic aloofness and romantic apathy. The standout exception to this role being Joel Glicker in the Addams Family Values. And even at the end of that movie, she tries to scare him to death. Okay, it's nebulous at best if she actually killed him or not, but I thought it was pretty heavily implied. Near-death experiences are flirting, which is just another damn reason that all of this is dumb. She's not flirting in the way that I would come to expect Wednesday to. And it doesn't even have the excuse of like, well, she's flirting in the way that would be expected of her in the social norm. Cause 1, she probably wouldn't conform to them, and 2, she never says or mentions this. I made that shit up.
I made it all up. Surprise.
The show hinges a huge part of Wednesday's growth on whether or not she opens up her heart, forcing her to betray one of her most iconic traits, her total disinterest in romance. Okay, not total, we love you, Joel. These 2 characters exist almost entirely to push Wednesday through the emotionally closed-off girl discovers love trope. These new characters aren't inherently bad. In fact, several of them are well acted and fun, but they signal a genre shift, which only really works if you're going to rework Wednesday's character. Which, oh boy, let's talk about it.
I actually fillet the bodies of my victims, then feed them to my menagerie of pets.
Wednesday used to be a macabre, deadpan intellectual who observed the world through a surgical detachment. She was emotionally flat but intensely perceptive. She was fascinated and passionate about death and cruelty and experimentation, but never cruel for the sake of it. She functioned as a satire for childhood innocence and sensitivity. She was unaffected by romance, peer pressure, or social norms. She didn't reject society because it hurt her, she simply had no interest in joining it because she knew who she was and she was confident in that. But who she is in the show is an angsty teen protagonist burdened by trauma, lineage, and emerging supernatural powers. She's emotionally and socially repressed in a this girl needs therapy way and not a this girl is a functional psychopath kind of way. She's forced to be branded as antisocial, but she's really just giving the typical TV loner archetype. She falls into every familial young adult coming of age rhythm. She makes friends, has heartbreak, and has emotional growth. She used to fill different roles. Her role used to be within a family unit, which made her primary purpose being that subversion we mentioned earlier. She doesn't giggle, she doesn't smile, does not wonder what the cute kid in phys ed thinks of her. She allowed for a lot of girls of a different brand to see themselves and feel comfortable with their own brand of weird. She She rejected gender expectations and substituted her own. She was the dark intellectual of the family who held up the uncanny mirror to society and pointed out the ridiculousness, providing the fuel for satirical reveals. She was a reminder that children aren't flat imitations of their parents, but come with their own complex personalities. Wednesday may resemble Morticia or even act like her at points, but her cutting wit and powers of observation remind us that children are observant and they are their own people.
Why are you dressed like somebody died?
Wait.
Not just an extension of their parents. She was an agent of chaos with purpose. Wednesday was always a rebel rouser and a ringleader. Pugsley was a free agent of chaos, but she always had a strong reason behind her actions and wasn't afraid of making a crystal clear statement. She grounded the family. Between Fester, Gomez, Grandma, Pugsley, Lurch, and Thing, we have a lot of zaniness. Wednesday always grounded the off-the-wall antics, otherwise it would just be too zany and slapstick. She was an important balancing force for the family. But the show changed Wednesday into forcing her into a different role. Now she's in the middle of the chosen one and romance triangle plotlines. She's also the brooking outsider who must learn to open up and accept help from others. Basically all the tropes we have in our tropes folder. A girl whose romantic tension is treated like character growth instead of narrative fluff. Her role of balance has been removed, since despite her efforts of giving each family member a surrogate at Nevermore, it never quite came together in the same way that it does with her family. The original Wednesday parodied tropes. She was antisocial because she genuinely enjoyed isolation, not because she was masking pain or social ineptitude. Netflix's Wednesday trades in all of Wednesday's former character traits for emotional damage disguised as depth. She's no longer detached because that's just who she is, it's because she's wounded and needs to be fixed by boys or friends. It should be a feature, not a bug. Romantic tension with people she barely knows contributes to the erasure of her classic aloofness and romantic apathy. They try to hold on to it a little bit in the beginning, but it evaporates really quickly, flattening her character into a traditional young adult trope girl. Wednesday Addams doesn't need a date, she needs a guillotine and a cello. Instead of Wednesday orbiting her bizarre family as they navigate a normal world, she's instead reduced to a moody teenager surrounded by peers with secrets, trauma, and special powers. In a supernatural academy. Which is great if you're writing the chilling adventures of Sabrina, but not if you're trying to tell an Addams Family story. Sure, it uses her name and some of the characters, but for all practical purposes, it's not what we would have expected. They have simply used Wednesday as a character protagonist transplant into a young adult teen mystery show. Think Teen Wolf or Riverdale. Riverdale is actually an apt example, since similar to the show, it was originally about a character named Archie who had his own stories, family, etc., and was morphed into a teen mystery comic. Now again, I'm kind of the opinion that there aren't any bad ideas on paper. Everything really comes down to execution. But let me ask you this. Your paper idea for the Addams Family franchise reads, remove every theme and idea that made the Addams Family property what it is. It may still be a good idea, and it may still work, but is it really for the Addams Family? A teen mystery drama set in a supernatural setting featuring a macabre and spooky girl is fine. Did it have to be Wednesday, though? It feels like they Flanderized her. For anyone unaware, Flanderization is when a franchise, property, or character goes on for way too long, and the writers lose track of the nuance that made the character, instead reducing them down to one or two primary character traits. The term comes from what happened to Flanders in The Simpsons, and another prominent example is basically every character in Family Guy. The same thing happened to Wednesday here. There was originally quite a lot of nuance to her character, and by extension her family. They were weird, dare I say kooky, but they loved each other and cared about each other. Imagine looking at the big list of what made the Addams Family what it was and saying, yeah, that one, she's goth and weird and that's all we need. It's kind of insulting to who Wednesday was as a character. But it makes sense to leave behind all the other elements if they were bent on pushing the genre of Netflix's Wednesday into being a teen mystery. It explains away all the characters, at least. The rebalancing and shifts of the show's emotional center away from the family was in service to pushing it towards a conventional ensemble young adult cast, which only further assimilates Wednesday into genre norms rather than letting her remain an unbothered anomaly. Oh yeah, I'm talking tropes. Let's get out that folder, baby. Throughout the story, we've observed a lot of different tropes for Wednesday in the show. Now we finally get to talk about them. To quickly remind everybody, the tropes we pegged were protagonist narration, transferred to a new school, love triangle, I'm 40 and bitter, too smart daughter feels betrayed by father, roommate has found family, emotionally closed off girl discovers love. I kind of gave away the reveal that these are not tropes of a traditional Addams Family. These are tropes of a teen mystery story. The Addams Family would be mocking these tropes up and down. Think about it for a second. The general idea that there's a family up the street living in a decrepit mansion practicing witchcraft and alchemy, actively trying to kill each other and terrorizing the neighborhood and life as we know it. That doesn't immediately scream at you, they love each other so much. That was the point. It was supposed to throw an idea at you, let you kind of think about how it was going to go, and then twist it up at the last second.
Last night you were like some desperate howling demon. You frightened me. Do it again.
So let's put my money where my mouth is here. Let's talk about how I think a more faithful Addams Family would have handled adapting these tropes.
I'm not sure whose twisted idea it was.
I think if the show really wanted to have a more faithful Addams Family narration, they would probably have made it a little bit more self-aware or fourth wall breaky. Maybe even allow interjection from other family members or other people, with a reveal at the very end that it wasn't narration at all. It was a retelling by Wednesday to her family, eagerly waiting to hear what happened. It would even make the Wednesday is mad at her mom parts funnier by allowing Morticia to react to them when it's over. Wow, Wednesday, I can't believe you felt such disdain for me in your time away. I've never felt closer to you. As you can see from episode 1, they even kind of came close to this, as Wednesday's parents call her after her first week. So if they could have done this idea anyway, why didn't they? Well, as it stands right now, it exists for two reasons. Number one, all the kids with ADHD who weren't watching the screen still need to be able to understand what's happening. And number two, it happens in teen mysteries, so it makes sense that they put it here too.
Lurch, please remind my parents that I'm no longer speaking to them.
I talked about it in episode 1, but an easy way for this to be a subversive part of the twist would be making it a reward for Wednesday's interaction with the jocks. Her mother saw what she did to the boys and is using Nevermore as a way to reward her, actually making good on her words about
it's the perfect school for her.
Maybe even encouraging her by saying that tons of kids get transferred to Nevermore because they put piranhas in their pool too. Or making Wednesday actually excited about it rather than it being a punishment, which would allow her to express joy and excitement in her classic Wednesday way. Imagine her deadpan at someone saying, "I've literally never been happier in my entire life to be here."
I want us to be more than friends.
Unconventional thought here, but hear me out. Love triangles are boring, but they're also traditional. And they're expected because people don't think you can date more than one person at the same time. But since Wednesday is so damn unconventional by nature, why not just date them both?
This is my boyfriend Derek. This is Derek's boyfriend Ben.
She's not a normal gal. Imagine a subversive conversation akin to, "Look, I'm interested in both of you because you're both weird people and I like that, so I'm going to hang out with both of you, and if you have a problem with that, you can leave." And somebody responds, "Okay, but do you like him? Do you like me?" And she says something like, "I like cradling cold steel with me when I drift off to sleep. I don't like anyone, but I enjoy your specific personality enough to stick close to you both." Subversive, unexpected, and unusual, which is exactly what it should be. You really want to take it the extra mile, you make both of them friends at the end.
The boy I asked turned me down for another girl. Morticia front, in fact.
This one was about Larissa being bitter and mad about Morticia taking her prom date like 20 years ago. It just feels so overplayed. I'm willing to give this a bit more leeway since it's not directly an Addams Family member feeling this way, but as I talked about, they're trying to make Larissa a stand-in for Morticia, and if they're gonna do that, they have to show enough respect to the role that they're trying to push her into. Alternatively, Morticia should be pressing this trope in every scene, straight up pretending like it isn't a problem, or not acknowledging the resentment or frustration Larissa feels for her. I think that might be interesting actually, since in most of the Addams Family media prior, no one really seems to confront Morticia about her lifestyle and weirdness. So having someone also with a weird and alternative lifestyle tell her that she's mad that Morticia stole her date 40 years ago feels like the kind of thing the Addams Family would just rake over the coals with jokes.
I knew I should have worn my plague mask.
Embarrassment, like shame, is something the Addams Family doesn't do and shouldn't feel privy to. The idea that Wednesday would be embarrassed by her family, especially in a school of weirdos where she knows her mother fit in, it just feels so weird. Bad weird. Like, it doesn't belong weird. The worst part is I feel like they came really close with this one. You've got Enid, a normal looking girl with normal looking parents, and they aren't even doing anything. You could throw in another student, maybe her stoner boyfriend, and they're both looking embarrassed by their normal ass looking parents. These normal ass parents don't even have to do anything, just exist, maybe wave to their kids, do normal parent things.
You gotta say I love you back.
And then there's Wednesday, standing next to them, waiting for them, the kids saying, "Wow, aren't parents the worst?" And then you show Morticia and Gomez maybe making out as they walk, or complimenting how decrepit the buildings were kept, Pugsley tinkering with an explosive, you know, things that would actually be like embarrassing to you and me. And then have Wednesday go, "Maybe your parents are the worst, but mine are perfect." Subversive, unexpected, especially if you're going to insist on keeping that part of her story where Wednesday is mad at her parents. It'd be a really easy way to turn the tropes on its head, giving us a twist that's not just comedic, but in character too.
It seems they've been lying to me.
It frequently happens in teen mysteries that center around families. The daughter who's too smart realizes that her father has a secret and either didn't tell her about it or lied about it, leading to a feeling of betrayal. The closest we really have for betrayal in the Addams Family is in the Addams Family movie when Fester is discovered by Wednesday to have been lying to them. The difference is that in that movie, they spent a full hour establishing that the family is the core principle of the Addams, and the show, meanwhile, has spent the entire show displaying the exact opposite, with Wednesday being mad at everyone. I also just can't get over that Wednesday being disappointed, betrayed, or even surprised that her father would kill somebody feels so out of character. And to fix it, I feel like it would be way more Addams Family-like to have her be proud of him, almost even idolizing him for dispatching somebody who was threatening Morticia of all people, no less. This was a character-specific trope between Enid and Wednesday, but a trope of teen mysteries nonetheless. It may not always be a roommate, but the trope still stands. Again, this may feel a little out there, but what's to stop alchemy and witchcraft from bonding Wednesday and Enid exactly? Starting with a roommate you don't get along with, and then throughout the story learning to love them is fine, I suppose. I just wish it was a little more pointed. I feel like Wednesday isn't necessarily as confrontational as I would expect her to be with this element of the story, but whatever. Once they do become found family, tell me it doesn't sound incredibly Addams Family-esque to have Wednesday insist that they actually become blood family, like with a blood pact or some kind of alchemy bond. Something absolutely over the top and crazy to us normal people, with Enid maybe even reflecting that. I could even see Wednesday asking her parents to adopt her so that they can be family. Something unexpected or odd that would make us look at it and go, oh yeah, okay, I mean, that feels familiar, but at least it's unique.
Hope you're not expecting me to call you.
No, never.
This is kind of akin to the love triangle trope, but again, I just don't see Wednesday ever being somebody closed off to emotion. They really wanted to tell this part of her story, but I just don't see it. She was passionate and fun about things, even if it was deadpan sometimes. Like, would you say April from Parks and Recreation was emotionally closed off? She had an aura about her, but she cried, she got married, she loved, she smiles. Wednesday did all that too, before this story and even in this very show. So despite this trope being ill-fitting for Wednesday to begin with, how could we flip it on its head? How can we subvert it? Once again, I think leaning into Wednesday's excitement and passion for things would be a saving grace here, another element of her personality that suffered due to flanderization. Maybe when the term love is even brought up by one of her love interests, she actually says that she's super familiar with it. She turns into a therapist or a scientist and talks about it. I feel like I would be really down with her knowing how love works on paper, but in practice, not so much. Instead, the show just has her avoid it and pretend that she doesn't love anything or isn't interested in anything. I can see this revision being played up for comedy, and maybe that's why they didn't do it, because damn, we are really penny pinching for our laughs in this show. And that's all of our tropes, but I would be remiss if I didn't talk about the growing technology.
On a worldwide system called the Internet.
The Addams Family came out in the 90s, and they satirized familiar social climates and pop culture, which is good. That's basically what satire is supposed to draw from. So what's the most popular thing in our modern day society that couldn't have even been predicted in the 90s? Smartphones and social media. And yet, Netflix's Wednesday talks about it shockingly little.
I find social media to be a soul-sucking void of meaningless affirmation.
You'd think with the writers literally having to keep in mind that people are on their phones for 80% of their show's runtime, they would have baked in more jokes or reflection about how it's infiltrated our society in such a heavy way. Instead, they just changed Wednesday so that she's tech-averse, which basically makes it impossible to satirize the topic. It just seems like such a missed opportunity to not even try to make jokes about it, to be more obvious about it as an aspect of our society. So, all that said, final thoughts. The show is disappointing. I hope that I was able to effectively illustrate how Netflix's Wednesday was able to be a young adult teen mystery show as opposed to a continuation of this already established franchise. From the plot, to the characters, to the tropes, everything about the story screams that type of genre. Which again, on paper, nothing's a bad idea. Even in watching the show, I don't hate it. It's fine, really. The acting can be solid, it's funny and clever when it wants to be, and it's turned a lot of people onto the Addams Family in general. But good or bad, fun or boring, tired or clever, I'm pretty sure about saying that Wednesday is a fine teen mystery show. But it's a fine teen mystery show with little to no satirical elements or comedic parody of expected tropes in storytelling, which is why I'm very confident in saying that Wednesday is not a good Addams Family property. That's the end.